Do you remember FNAF World, the RPG by Scott Cawthon after the release of Five Nights at Freddy's 4? Back when we all thought the franchise would be over. Of course you do. It was probably one of the most controversial games he's ever made. Now, how about the FNAF RPG that came before it? Do you remember that? Do you remember the Five Nights at Freddy's fan game that broke the classic FNAF formula and decided to do something completely unique and never seen before? A game that turned the target audience for FNAF completely on its head, with more vulgarities in a single 3-hour game than your drunk stepdad. I'm sure a light bulb is going off in some of your heads already, but for those of you who don't follow, or for those of you who are too young to remember the early days of Five Nights at Freddy's, the game I'm talking about is Five Nights at Boys, a FNAF RPG created by Sable Lynn and Joshua Shaw back in November of 2014. For all of you that remember, I'm going to take you on a stroll down memory lane as we dive back into the world of Five Nights at Fuckboys. Since the franchise has been released, there has been an updated version created by Zane. The update greatly fixes a lot of problems that the originals had, such as the sound effects not being louder than an atomic bomb, and much needed difficulty balancing. This video will only be covering the first game in the series, but note that there are more games, and if you like this video and are interested in hearing me talking about the other ones, definitely let me know in the comments below. Before we begin, I'd like to say thank you all so much for the support on my last video. Within 4 days of that video being posted, it passed 1,000 views, which is absolutely crazy, and I honestly can't thank you all enough. Roar the Rapper corrected me on the comment I made about taking shifts in my last video, and that gave me a fun idea. I think it'd be fun to ask you guys a question at the end of the video, and show my favorite answer at the beginning of the next video, so stick around to the end of the video if you'd like to participate. Without further ado, let's get into the video. In Five Nights at Fuckboys, we play as Freddy. We start on the show stage in the original game's location. We can move around the pizzeria freely and explore wherever we'd like. Even though this game is pretty linear in terms of progression, I really like that no location is blocked off until we make progress, aside from the office, which is only unlocked at the end of the game, but that's for good reason. The goal of this game is to get into the office, presumably to kill the security guard, just like the animatronics from the original. However, if you just try to go to the office right away, the security guard will see you coming because of the cameras and shut the door on you, but not before Freddy says this amazing line.
I want you inside of me.
And they say chivalry is dead. Ladies, this is what a real man should be saying to you. That was a joke, by the way. So, since it's clear that the security guard can see us coming, what would the logical choice be? Do we wait outside of his door so that the power runs out? No, of course not. That'd make too much sense. What we do instead is beat the shit out of all the cameras so that he can't see us. Alright, cool. A new objective. There are multiple cameras around the pizzeria, just like the original, but we really have to be careful as each of these cameras act as a boss. You can tell which cameras are more difficult than others because before you choose to fight them, you can see their difficulty listed at the top of the screen, which I think is a really nice addition. But before I can dive into the boss fights, we have to talk about how this game actually plays. As I said, this is an RPG, so there is a lot of turn-based fighting. But try your best not to let that turn you off from giving this game a try. As you walk around the pizzeria, randomly you will enter fights with party hats. There are multiple types of party hats: alpha hats, beta hats, gamma hats, and omega hats. Each listed is more difficult than the last, each having more health, damage, and skills as the last. The area of the pizzeria that you're in dictates which type of party hat you will find. This is a small way of letting you know which area you should be going to. If you're used to fighting alpha hats, which are the weakest, and you wander into an area that has omega hats, which are the strongest, that's a pretty good sign that you probably shouldn't be over there yet. That's what I mean when I say that the game can be pretty linear progression-wise. However, I really like that even though in that situation there's no way you'd be beating an Omega Party Hat, you still have the option to venture over there, something which I wish modern RPGs would do. Beating Party Hats, or any enemies, will give you XP and tokens, an in-game currency you can use to buy items. At the start of the game, you can buy items from the vending machine in the dining area. The vending machine sells really shitty items, but shopping from here will be pretty necessary for the early moments of the game. When I first went into this game, I told myself I wouldn't use items in battle. I was thinking of this game like Pokemon. In Pokemon, I hate using items in battle, so I thought I could do that here too. Let me tell you, you will need to use items in battle, as this game is most likely impossible without them. However, unlike Pokemon, where using items in battle makes the game incredibly easy, even with items in battle in Five Nights at Fuckboys, you'll still probably find yourself struggling from time to time. I think if you want to say you don't want to use items in battle for a challenge, don't use pizzas or cakes. Pizzas heal health and cakes revive party members. A character you get later in the game can do both of these things with a special ability, so using them, while doing the same thing, can't be spammed as much as the items can. In battle, I liked to use just the soda as an item, since I felt it didn't make every fight super easy. Soda just increases your party member's SP, which stands for special points. Don't worry, I'll get into all that later. I suppose I should probably talk about how the battling works. As you enter a battle, for each character in your party, you get to select one of 4 options: Scream, Skills, Guard, and Item. Scream is just a basic attack that costs you nothing. Skills will allow you to use one of your skills. Each character will gain a maximum of 5. Every character starts with Scan, an ability that costs nothing and doesn't even waste a turn. It allows you to see the health of a target enemy and anything special that the enemy does. I mainly only ever used this for bosses, since a lot of them have cheats to make them more difficult. I'll get into that later. Guard will make that party member guard for the turn. It costs nothing and makes the character's defense increase massively for the turn. And Item allows a character to choose an item you have in your inventory and target another party member or itself with it. After all of your party members have selected what they will do, based on your party members' speed stats and the speed stat of your enemies, each entity in the fight will perform the action they chose. After every action has been taken, the cycle repeats. It continues to repeat until either you defeat all the enemies or the enemies defeat your entire party. With the basics explained, we can get into the meat of the game. Just from walking around, you'll be able to find the other animatronics, Bonnie, Foxy, and Chica. Well, you can't see Chica because she's in the kitchen, and the kitchen is locked. The kitchen and the office are the only 2 rooms you can't enter immediately. So, trying to use just Freddy to progress is not fun, and is very frustrating and tedious, so your best course of action is to add the other characters to your party to help out. Walking into the back room, you'll find Bonnie. Upon talking to him, he tells you he's missing his face, and he wants you to find it for him. We'll get back to Bonnie later, as he's the last member you'll add to your party. In the back room, you also see this party hat. These party hats act as mini-bosses in the game, and you can find them in various areas of the game. Once you beat any of them, which can be a pretty hard challenge, especially the first one, Balloon Boy will appear. Balloon Boy acts as the shopkeeper in this game. Once you unlock the first Balloon Boy, you will never have to go back to the vending machine again. Balloon Boy, along with selling pizzas, sodas, and cakes, also sells helpful items, such as better versions of weapons for each character, armor, and accessories. Each increases a specific stat for your party members. Each time you unlock a Balloon Boy, the items he sells gets better and better, giving you a clear incentive to fight these mini-bosses. I really like how simple his shop is. It's very straightforward with what you should buy, and you won't find yourself sitting in the shop for long periods of time trying to figure out the best way to build your party. But in order to beef up our party, we actually need to fill it first. We know we can't get to Chica yet because she's locked in the kitchen, so that means we have to get Foxy first. Walking into Pirate's Cove, we see Foxy behind the curtain. I'm not going to say what he's doing in there, but I'm sure you can read. At this point, if you walk back into the main room, you can find a lighter in a box. Taking the lighter and going back into Pirate's Cove, Freddy attempts to burn it down, but before he can do that, Balloon Boy steals the lighter from Freddy and forces you to buy it from him. There's literally no purpose behind this besides to show you how annoying Balloon Boy is. After you buy the lighter back from Balloon Fuck, you can actually burn down Pirate's Cove. Doing so forces Foxy to join your party. At this point, if you enter the bathroom, you can find a key. While you're in here, you might think to enter the actual bathrooms. You can enter the men's room just fine, but upon trying to enter the women's room, Freddy won't because he's a man. We'll have to come back later with a female character. Speaking of, with this key, we can unlock the kitchen. Upon doing so, Chica joins our party. With Chica, we'll be able to get into the women's bathroom. Inside, there's a chest with a voucher inside. There's also a party hat mini-boss. After beating it and unlocking the bathroom balloon boy, talking to him lets you exchange the voucher for Bonnie's face. Going back to the back room, you give Bonnie his face back and he joins your party. Congrats! You now have the entire party of characters with you. Now's probably a good time to talk about each character's skills. Every 5 levels, a character will unlock a new one, with a maximum of level 20 and 4 total unlocked skills. Freddy's level 5 skill is Top Hat Toss. It costs SP or special points, and the amount it costs depends on Freddy's level. This is the same for most abilities in the game, spanning across all characters. The higher the level, the more it costs. Top Hat Toss deals large damage to an enemy and hits twice. His level 10 ability is Lead Stinger. It deals damage once and deals more damage if the target enemy is poisoned. There are several buffs and debuffs in this game, and poison is one of them. This move also has a small chance to inflict poison upon dealing damage. The poison debuff will cause the inflicted entity to take damage at the end of the turn. Freddy's level 15 skill is Toreador March, a skill that hits several times. Each hit deals a very small amount of damage, but it leaves the targeted enemy with a large chance of being put to sleep, which is another debuff. Entities with sleep will be unable to perform any actions until they wake up. Freddy's level 20 ability is Death Inhale. This ability can only be used once per battle and costs 100 TP. TP stands for Technique Points, and a character gains them by being damaged by enemies. 100 is the maximum amount a character can have, and every battle starts each party member with 0, so getting any character to 100 TP can prove to be a challenge. Death Inhale will do an enormous amount of damage to a targeted enemy and hit them multiple times. Foxy's level 5 ability is Plank Walk, an ability that deals a large amount of damage and has a chance to paralyze the targeted enemy. Paralyzed entities have a chance to not be able to perform actions. The chance of causing paralysis increases with the more TP Foxy has. Foxy's level 10 ability is Rushdown. When used, Foxy will hit the enemy several times with pretty high damage on each hit. Foxy's level 15 ability is Speed Share, an ability that just increases all party members' speed. And his level 20 ability is Sea Shanty, an ability that greatly decreases the targeted enemy's attack and defense, and has a chance to inflict silence, which is another debuff. Entities with silence will be unable to use their skills. Chica's level 5 ability is Pizza Pass, an ability that heals a target party member a great amount of health, by far her best ability. Her level 10 ability is Fearless Flight. It deals a pretty shitty amount of damage to a target enemy, but any buffs that enemy had get removed, so that's really nice. Chica's level 15 ability is Caffeine Revival. It does exactly what you think it does. Revives a dead party member. I never found myself using this much since enemies tended to hit all party members rather than just focusing on one, which is really nice. Chica's level 20 ability is Mama Bird. It increases a target party member's defense and increases their SP by 50%. Because I tended to use sodas a lot in battle, I never found myself using this ability very often. And finally, we have Bonnie, the character who I honestly found the most useless in battle. It's very clear he's supposed to be a general support, just like Chica is a healing support, but he kind of does it in a way that you almost never use him. I usually ended up using Bonnie as the character who used items, but his level 5 ability is Bunny Hop, which hits a target enemy multiple times and has a small chance to lower their defense, and I do mean a small chance. His level 10 ability is Riff Wave, by far the ability I had him use the most. It deals a large amount of damage to a target enemy and has a medium chance to inflict poison. The poison is the main reason I used this ability, just so Freddy's ability would deal more damage. Bonnie's level 15 ability is Backup Bash. It deals a lot of damage and has a medium chance to decrease the targeted enemy's attack. This ability actually deals more damage depending on how many party members are dead, but since you probably won't have members dead all too often, and the fact that Freddy and mainly Foxy are your two main hitters, you will almost never use this ability unless you're specifically trying to decrease enemy damage. And finally, his level 20 ability is Motivation Jam, in my opinion, his best ability. It greatly increases the defense and attack of a targeted party member for about 4 turns. Super helpful when paired with Foxy or Freddy when he uses Death Inhale. Wow, That took longer than I thought it would. I apologize. Let's continue. Again, in order to get to the office, we have to knock out all the cameras. The first camera I recommend beating is the show stage camera, as it has no cheats. Just beat it normally, and you're on to the next one. The dining room camera is what I suggest you do next. It and every other camera from this point forward will have a cheat to make their fight more difficult. This one will drain your SP every turn. With how early in the game you'll fight this camera, this cheat is devastating. The back room camera will get stronger and stronger each turn, so the longer you spend trying to kill it, the more and more damage it will do to your party members. The West Hall camera is one of the worst. Every turn it will heal around 500 health. Considering where you are at the time, that can be 70 to 80% of your damage output each turn, making this fight take way longer than it needs to. Pack plenty of soda for this one. The East Hall camera's cheat really isn't a problem. Like the dining room camera, instead of draining your SP, it drains your TP instead. At this point in the game, you probably won't find yourself relying on TP yet, unless you like to spam Foxy's plank walk ability, which you should really be using Rushdown for Foxy anyway, since it's just better in most cases. The bathroom camera can cause a real problem if you're not prepared. Your entire party is inflicted with poison the entire fight, and there's no way to get rid of it. Depending on when you decide to fight this camera, this can be a real run killer. Pirate's Cove camera has a speed so high that the only character in your party that will perform their action before it is Foxy. Highly recommend using Foxy's speed share ability during this fight. After doing that, it should be a cakewalk. The supply closet camera is by far the easiest, considering you're fighting them in the correct order, which is the order that I'm telling you to fight them in. The camera will literally heal your party. I have no idea why it does this, but it does. The East Hall corner camera isn't the worst, considering I fought some of the other optional mini-bosses before this. That might be the reason I feel this way. I'll get into those optional mini-bosses after these cameras. This camera will perform 2 actions per turn rather than 1. I could imagine that if I didn't beat the optional mini-bosses, that this fight and the next would have been much more difficult. The West Hall corner camera is probably the last one you should fight, mainly because of its health and damage output. But its cheat is super important to note. It is immune to all debuffs, which means it can't be paralyzed, poisoned, silenced, or put to sleep. This will greatly change how you go about fighting it, since, at least through my playthrough, I put a huge emphasis on poisoning my enemies. After beating the final camera, the power to the pizzeria will go out and you'll be able to enter the office for the final battle. But before I talk about that, there's a few things that happen before you fight the final camera that we need to talk about. I'll start with the optional mini-bosses I was talking about earlier. Once you max a character to level 20, their toy variant will appear on the map somewhere. Challenging them and beating them will give you the best version of said character's weapon. I fought them in order of Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, then Mangle. I do not recommend you beat them in that order, as some of them are much more difficult than others. I recommend you start with Toy Freddy, then Mangle, then Toy Bonnie, and ending with Toy Chica. Toy Chica was surprisingly the most difficult out of all of them. She was able to hit all of my party members multiple times in a single turn for huge damage, easily halving all of their health. This is one of the only fights where I felt like I needed to use healing items in battle because she would not stop fingering me in the asshole. There's also an optional boss you can fight. Well, it's optional to beat, mandatory to fight, that being the puppet. The wiki says the puppet spawns after beating your second camera, but I swear I beat at least 4 cameras before he spawned. Maybe that's because I was playing the complete collection instead of the original though. Either way, once the puppet spawns, a timer will appear in the top corner of your screen. When it runs out, you have to fight the puppet. You don't have to beat him to progress, but there's no reason not to since he gives a large amount of XP. In the complete collection, there's no way to reset this timer, and it will continue to count down even during fights. In my playthrough, it ran out while I was fighting Toy Freddy, and Toy Freddy had killed Chica. I had no way to revive her going into the puppet's fight, and that definitely made it much more difficult and tense since Chica is almost mandatory to beat any fight because she's the one that will be healing and reviving your characters. After beating the puppet, you can go into the bathroom and have an optional fight with the marionette, a more difficult version of the puppet. I didn't do this fight because I didn't know if it would be harder than the office fight. Considering finishing the office fight ends the game, I'm gonna have to assume that the marionette is not more difficult, but again, I never fought it. After doing these optional fights that you should definitely do if you don't want to get butt banged in the final fight, you can head down to the office and go inside. Upon entering, you're greeted by Golden Freddy, who's pissed that you didn't invite him to join the fun you've been having throughout the night. Golden Freddy is Five Nights at Fuckboy's final boss. He is the only boss in the game to have multiple other enemies you have to fight along with him. Alongside Golden Freddy, you also have to fight 4 Omega Party Hats, which, if you remember, are the most difficult party hat in the game. They're not too much of an issue, but I definitely recommend you take them out before you start targeting Golden Freddy, as their attacks can rack up a large amount of damage if left unanswered. As I said before, after beating Golden Freddy, the game ends. Golden Freddy screams, for no joke, 5 nights straight because he's a little pissy poop baby. Overall, I think Five Nights at Fuckboys is a great experience. However, I have one major problem with the game, that being the first early bit of the game before you can unlock Foxy. Playing with only an underleveled Freddy is so unfun, as you will pretty much be bodied by 90% of the enemies you fight, and God forbid you have to fight more than one enemy at a time. This early section alone will take up a big amount of your playthrough, as you'll find yourself having to grind for quite a long time to even be a little bit of a threat to the enemies. However, once you start collecting party members, the game gets much more enjoyable.
Who is your favorite Five Nights at Freddy's game developer? Maybe it's Mixlass for the amazing Tyke & Sons Lumber Co. Maybe it's Scott Cawthon himself for making the series we all love so much today. My answer should be pretty obvious if you're at all familiar with my channel, and that developer is Garrett McKay, responsible for amazing games I've covered on this channel like Fredbear's Frights and A Bite at Freddy's. He was also a 3D modeler for Pop Goes Evergreen, but he's also responsible for another amazing project, a project I've been asked to cover many times ever since the release of my review of Fredbear's Fright. I'm sure you're all very familiar with Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot, which is the game I will finally be covering in this video. Going into Left to Rot, I had no idea what to expect. I had seen absolutely nothing about the game going into it, which is how I go into most of the games I cover on this channel. All I knew was the game's developer, who I already had a lot of confidence in. So let's waste no time and jump into the long-awaited coverage of Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot. Rather than throwing you into a menu screen like most FNAF games, Left to Rot begins with a cutscene, similar to Garrett's other works. This cutscene appears to be an instruction tape, informing workers how to switch from the old Fredbear and Spring Bonnie animatronics over to the new and improved Freddy and Bonnie. We have to dismantle the old animatronics and replace them, afterwards adding Chica by Freddy's side. This is actually really interesting. Instead of just replacing the animatronics, we sort of reused some of the endoskeleton pieces from the old models, meaning that, technically, Fredbear is still a part of Freddy, and Spring Bonnie is still a part of Bonnie. Something interesting to think about. After this cutscene, we're actually thrown into another cutscene. We're in a car on the phone with an unknown person. We're told by this person that we're supposed to enter an unnamed building and head straight into the office. Slowly disabling all of the building's systems, we're told that the animatronics inside act as security, and if they touch us, it's not gonna be fun. I know all of you goons think differently, so don't even start with the comments. We enter the building and the real gameplay can begin. On this night, we're in the observatory, and our main goal is to get through each camera and disable their audio and their video. That doesn't sound very difficult, Dxtr. Shut the fuck up. You know full well there's gonna be some animatussies trying to hit us from the back. The 3 characters trying to grab up on us are Fredbear, Spring Bonnie, and the Prototype. Fredbear is pretty simple. If you see him standing approximately 6 feet away from you, aka close enough to smell his rancid breath, jump under the desk like they're the trenches in World War I and pray to God that his breath isn't the equivalent to mustard gas. Once he leaves, you can pop back up. Spring Bonnie is much the same, only instead of his breath smelling like all the dead fish on Earth, Spring Bonnie's breath smells like ass. Because you know what they say, you are what you eat, and he's eating a whole lot of ass. Did you know back in middle school, when all of the kids were saying what they wanted to be when they grew up? Some kids said firefighter, some kids said police officer. This motherfucker right here said, I wanna be an astronaut. I wanna explore booty. Absolutely foul robot. The prototype is a bit different, however. Just being an endoskeleton, he really doesn't have any meat on the bones, meaning there's nothing for you freaks to grab up on. Usually, my metaphors have to deal with the robots touching us, but after reading some of your feral comments, I get the feeling my metaphor should be the other way around. Anyways, if the endoskeleton is in your office, just flash your light at him and he'll go away. Overall, this room isn't too difficult, but really shows off just how creepy the atmosphere for the rest of the game is going to be. Also, yes, I said room, not night that time, because this entire game takes place in a single night, as we make our way through a giant building trying to find something that is so far unknown to us. Let's waste no time and hop into the next room. Before we can go into the next room, however, we have another minigame / cutscene to go through. In this one, we see Freddy, who is actually talking to us. This, by the way, is just another tutorial tape for employees where they're shown how they can remotely control the animatronics while they're on stage. We move his jaw, and my favorite, make him shake like he's having a seizure. Jumping into the next phone call, we stand outside of a mysterious door. Are your nuts quaking staring at this door? Mine are. We're told that behind that door is a storage room, and that inside there are some items that we need to collect. Entering the room, we grab a few remotes and a larger screen. Not totally sure what these things are. Maybe a camera system? Who knows? Now all we need to do is walk out of this door right here and oh god damn it, of course it doesn't have any power. This is gonna be a survival section, isn't it? Hey, future Dxtr here. He's right. It's a survival section. To prevent this Dxtr from going apeshit feral mode, I'm going to take over this section for him. In this section, we have to charge up the door we need to exit through, while staying safe from Max. Who the fuck is Max, I hear you asking? I have no idea. But he's behind this curtain. Seems to be a puppet type thing, I'm not really sure. As we, slowly as fuck, charge up this door, Max will start making moves, and we have to keep him behind the curtain by flashing our light at him. This room is incredibly easy. Max does not move very fast, and even though the door takes about 2 decades to charge, you won't really ever feel in danger throughout. Going through the dark doorway, we continue. Before entering the next room, we have to interact with yet another tape. This one teaches us how to test arcade machines. We have to play 2 fuck-ass minigames that I hate in order to continue. The first game where you play as Spring Bonnie in space, having to shoot little Bonnies at pizza to defend who the fuck knows what. This game takes so goddamn long to complete. I'm actually getting sick to my stomach even thinking about it. The second game we have to test is an interesting one, to say the least. We play as Sneaky Guy. Who the fuck is Sneaky Guy? I don't know. All you do in this game is run around aimlessly through rooms until the game just shits itself. Thank you, Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot. What a great use of my time. After that, we immediately enter test room 1, which is just a child's bedroom. A little weird why that would be a test room, but we're going to pretend like that isn't incredibly alarming. The guy on the phone tells us that he's not entirely sure what's actually in this room for us to collect. But before he can say anything else, the phone call goes to static and cuts out, leaving us alone for the very first time. Oh shit, guys, I just pissed the bed. Editor, can you bring a mop please and clean up the piss mess all over the fucking bed? Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I know this is such a big pissy mess, but I don't know what happened to me. Usually I'm better at this. I mean, look at this mess. It's got to be at least a gallon or 2. Thank you, editor. I apologize for this disgusting inconvenience. You can leave now. Thank you again. Sorry about that, guys. Let's just talk about the room now. In this room, the goal is to pry open this vent, slowly as fuck. While we're trying to open this vent, we're being attacked by 2 animatronics of which I don't know the names of, so for the sake of this section, I will be calling them Freak Bob number 1 and Freak Bob number 2. Freak Bob number 1 attacks from the door to the room that's in front of you when the night begins. He will appear at random in the doorway, making a sound cue to let you know he's there. All you have to do is quickly whip around and flash him. With your light, not your genitals. Fucking weirdo. You also have to make sure that Freak Bob number 1's toy stays wound up. If you don't, Freak Bob number 1 himself is going to get wound up. Sexual style. And it's not going to be very fun for you. Freak Bob number 2 is pretty much a nerfed version of Freak Bob number 1, being at your closet door instead. If you hear him, flash your light at him and he'll piss off. No toy to crank, Very simple. The only struggle to this room is actually not falling asleep while you wait for this slow ass, fuck ass, dumb ass, stupid ass, fuck vent to open. All right, pause. Time for me to cut in. This last Dxtr was supposed to stay calm, but apparently he couldn't do it either. So hi, I'm Dxtr number 3, and I'll be taking over from here. Shoo, now, get out. Thank you. All right, where were we? Oh yes. Once the vent has been pried open, you're safe to crawl through and move on to the next room. Exiting the vent, we see an exit door. But before we get the opportunity to leave this hellhole, we get jumped by some fuck-ass animatronic who knocks us out. We wake up inside of an unknown room with a tape in front of us. Playing it, we find it's one of the tapes heard in Five Nights at Freddy's 3, teaching us how to climb in and out of Springlock costumes. Oh no, this is about to be bad. After listening to the tape, we go over to a Fredbear costume and open it up. Climbing inside, we slowly lower the suit onto our bodies. Once inside, we play the next tape. As the phone guy tells us not to breathe on the spring locks, we immediately start breathing on the spring locks. This is F-student behavior right here, by the way. Of course, we die, and now's the time I should say that this is definitely not our player in this cutscene. I say that because after this death, we enter test room 2. Oh boy. Test room 2. How I hate you. In test room 2, the most immediate threat is the toxicity of the room we are in. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy have been literally ripping ass and hotboxing this room for the last 12 years, and without a gas mask, we will soon die because of it. Luckily for us, we have a gas mask. Putting it on decreases our toxicity level, but whenever the mask is off, it will very quickly begin to climb back up. Dxtr, that doesn't sound too bad. Shut the hell up. I haven't even started talking about the animatronics in this godforsaken room yet. Let's start with Freddy and Chica, shall we? These two work pretty much exactly the same, with only one small difference. Freddy and Chica will enter your vents in an attempt to get to you. When you see them in your vents via your cameras, you will have to temporarily disable the fans in those vents to gas them out and make them leave. However, when you disable a vent fan, your toxicity will increase dramatically faster than you can handle, so you need to make sure you're listening for the vent sound cue to let you know they left so that you can quickly turn the fans back on. I said there was a difference between Freddy and Chica, and the only difference is that Freddy is goated and you'll be able to see him in the hallway, giving you a better warning as to when he's about to enter your vent. Bonnie is the next annoying character, so let's talk about him. Bonnie will appear behind you in your window. When you see him, he will lean in real close to give you a kiss. Now pause. While you may feel enticed to reciprocate, I would advise against that. Little did you know, Bonnie doesn't know what a toothbrush is. So unless you're the most disgusting human being on the planet, kissing someone like that probably isn't the best idea. When Bonnie leans in, what you should be doing instead is putting your gas mask on, which scares him away for some reason. Maybe it's because he took the hint that you don't want to kiss him. That's my best guess. But now, we need to talk about the behemoth, Foxy. Allow me to keep my composure when I say this.
This is fucking bullshit! Fuck this stupid ass, fuck ass, dumb ass, bitch ass, dunce ass fox! God damn, I'm gonna give a brother an aneurysm with this dick!
Alright, I said it. I've tried to fight the demons throughout this entire video, but I just can't anymore. I guess I'm not allowed to just be calm and do a normal review without freaking out and losing my goddamn mind. This second test room broke me. This second test room is the bane of my existence. I cannot stand it. Foxy will appear in your hallway. When he does, you need to shut off the power to your office, which means no checking cameras, no blocking vents, and my favorite, no turning around to check on Bonnie. Why are you doing this to me, game? What did I do to you? Garrett, look at me. Look at me with my fucking eyes right now. What happened to you? What did someone do to you to make you design something so absolutely foul, devious, and soul degrading? I cannot describe how angry I am at this room. You can see my reaction over on my second channel, Dxtr Black. When you have to turn the lights off, you have to do so for such a long time. Enough time to take a nap. Fuck it, right? Why not? And how long do you have to deal with this shit ass cycle for? 6 minutes. 6 soul-sucking fuck-ass minutes. I was so close to ripping out my pubic hair with my teeth while suffering through this horrendous room. 6 minutes doesn't sound like a long time, but trust me, this is the longest 6 minutes I've ever been through, especially when I died at 5 minutes about 100 times. I'm drained, completely drained. I don't know if I can continue writing about this game. I don't know if I can complete it. Not so bad when you listen. You know, maybe if you listen more often, people wouldn't call you butt as fuck. Oh my god, that noise scared the fuck out of me, but I did it. Damn! Half an hour on that bullshit! I did it. God, it is real! Thank God! I thought I'd never escape that bullshit! Oh my god. This is making me want to go outside and appreciate life. Fuck FNAF. Fuck YouTube. I need to be out in nature. No, actually, scratch that. Women are outside, and women are scary. Let's stay inside where it's safe and no woman would ever go. And continue to the next cutscene. The next cutscene has us learn how to clean a fursuit, something Cord Kitty should have taken notes on. Freaky fuck. After cleaning the suit, we're thrown into the final test, which is unironically my favorite section in this entire game. During this final test, we have to send what the game calls the suit into the office. This suit will move around the cameras, and whenever we see him without his eyes glowing, we need to press the return button. After doing this about 5 times, the final test is over. Congrats, you've just beaten— Nah, I'm just fucking with you. Of course there's more than that. On top of the suit, we have a few other threats to deal with. Let's start with the Lil Bonnie. Side note, I know these guys have actual names, but I think Lil Bonnie sounds better, so kick rocks. Lil Bonnie will occasionally pop into your office. When he does, all you have to do is use the jumper cables on your desk to shock his nipples and scare him away. Lil Freddy is probably my favorite character in this entire game, however. He will occasionally appear in your window. You'll notice a piece of paper on the window as well. When you see Lil Freddy, you'll have to move the paper to cover his eyes so he can't see you, confirming that Freddy has no object permanence. Lil Golden Freddy is the last character to talk about. He can jump in front of your cameras, fucking them up. And when you see him doing this, all you have to do is reboot the cameras and it's GG easy. After moving the suit successfully to the office, the power goes out, and it looks like Golden Freddy appears in front of us. We try desperately to use a remote control to shock him, but it doesn't work. He lunges at us, cutting to black. We cut back to see the bathroom camera from Five Nights at Freddy's 1, and Golden Freddy waving us into the female restroom for some reason. A little bit of a creep freak, if you ask me. Shortly after, he kind of just stares at the camera all weird like, before we're shown we got the tragic ending. Endings? Oh no. So, in my playthrough on Dxtr Black, for some reason I never got the other endings. I have no idea why. I have no idea what's wrong with me. But don't worry, I'll cover them here. Just know that from this point forward, all the footage you will see is from Dice Games. Thank you for actually completing this game, Dice, like I didn't do for some reason. Before I cover all the endings, I need to quickly talk about Insane Mode, found in the Extras menu. It's a much more challenging version of Test Room 2, which, fuck that. No way in hell I'm even thinking about touching that bullshit, and I didn't on my playthrough on Dxtr Black either. Maybe that's the reason I never got the other endings. Anyways, after beating Insane Mode, we're greeted to what looks to be Freak Bob number 2 from Test Room 1 lying on the ground. The guy on the phone apologizes and says that they will soon go after Afton. We're shown a piece of paper that reads the following. Experiment number 3 notes. Experiment number 3 tests the binding effects of the high energy substance variable to surfaces larger than those in experiments 1 and 2. As the surface variable increases in size, the energy output decreases only slightly. The surface tested on for this experiment was the Mouseki version 2 animatronic. It is unknown whether the results were influenced by integrated motor components of the surface. 2 more experiments will be necessary to evaluate for bias. Experiment overall successful. More details in the experiment log. As some people are aware, Garrett McKay's games are connected. In this note is a reference to Mouseki from Fredbear's Fright. It appears that Freak Bob number 2 might actually just be an earlier version of Mouseki. Now, back to ending grinding. Going all the way back to the phone call before the storage room section, if instead of going straight into the storage room like I did, you instead can turn left and you'll find a safe. Inputting the code 321975, the safe will open and you'll be able to take a small remote out. Using this remote, we can go back to the final test room and use that remote to shock the suit as it enters our office, fucking its shit up, making it get its jiggy on, giving us the good ending. We're greeted to a final cutscene where we box up Fredbear and Spring Bonnie for good, and we're told that because of William Afton, the company has to be sold and the building will be locked up forever. Now's the time where I need to talk about Custom Night. Usually I never talk about custom nights in my reviews, but the custom night in this game is actually very important. There are several pre-built custom challenges that give fun rewards like in FNAF 2, but the all 20 mode is the challenge that's really important. So let's go over how everything works. On custom night, we're in an office we've never seen before, with 4 monitors and 2 hallways leading to our office. First, how do we win? Well, on the 4th monitor, you'll see a list of detections. This is just like the mechanics from Pizzeria Simulator, where we have to deactivate everything on the monitor in order for the night to end. There are actually 2 pages of detections, meaning that we have 10 total to deactivate, and goddamn does it take a long time to even deactivate one of them. So cool, easy enough. Now, what about the threats? Let's start with Timothy, or as we've been calling him, Freak Bob number 2. Timothy will appear in the right hallway of your office. When you see him there, you'll have to use your hyper flash to scare him off. Next up is the prototype. He's pretty similar to Freak Bob number 2. He will appear in the left hallway of your office, and instead of using the hyper flash, you'll have to shine your light at him until he decides it's time to goon again and leaves. Next on the chopping block is Roger, aka the Freak Bob number 1 toy. He just kinda chills on your desk. Keep him wound up to stop him from chomping on that delectable tush you've got. The suit is next. He appears on your 3rd monitor, which has 2 cameras. If you ever see him on any of them, you need to press the advance button to make him run away like a little bitch. Next up is Jeffrey, or as we've called him, Lil Freddy. Lil Freddy will appear on your 1st monitor, which has 4 cameras. If you see him on one, you need to make that camera go to static so he doesn't see you. Remember, he has no object permanence. Barry is up next, aka Lil Bonnie. He'll appear on the 2nd monitor. It'll be kind of hard to see because of how dark it is, but when you do see him, you need to shock his nipples again. That gets his rocks off. And finally, we have Lewis, or of course, better known as Lil Golden Freddy. Lewis can appear on any of your monitors, and when you see him, you need to reboot it as fast as possible, making him probably the most annoying character in all of Custom Night. The combination of all these characters together is brutal. You will barely have time to do the tasks you need to complete this night. I, of course, have not beaten all 20 mode because I value my sanity, but to anyone who has beaten this like Dice Games, congrats because this is nuts. After completing 720 mode, you unlock access to a final minigame. You play as a character in black inside of one of the pizzerias. You turn off the power to the building and get inside of a Fredbear costume and go to the office to, quote, find the intruder. Once in the office, you grab the security guard and drag him away, giving us the getaway ending, with text displayed on screen stating no one will believe him. We also get a little creep shot of a foot that I know you guys are wanting to give a quick lick. Don't even lie. I actually have a small theory that this minigame shows what really happened in the final test room of this game. When the lights went out, whoever was in that suit that we were trying to get to the office gets to us and drags us away. But because we pick up that special remote, we were able to shock him and stop him. But that's just a theory. A gay theory.
Thanks for watching.
But with that, that's all Fredbear and Friends Left to Rot has to offer. I thought this game was crazy cool. I think I still like A Bite at Freddy's a little bit more, but holy crap, this game is amazing. Despite my fucking hatred for Test Room 2, I can put that aside and appreciate the amount of work that was put into this game. Juniors is the most unique FNAF fan game I've ever played, and I have played a lot of them. Really. I've quite literally built my entire career around playing FNAF games, and Juniors is 100% the most fun I've ever had playing any FNAF game ever designed. This video is here to go over everything I love about the game and the few things that I hate, because truly, I do not believe there is currently any FNAF fan game that does the formula better than Junior's. So let's waste no more time on the intro that nobody cares about and get into the best FNAF fan game ever made. Before we begin talking about Junior's, I want to tell a bit of a story, or I guess more of a fun fact. I actually wanted to avoid playing and reviewing Junior's for the longest time. I've been getting suggestions for it since my first ever FNAF video over a year ago, and I've always decided that I didn't want to touch it. Why? Because I used to have this really cringy way of thinking. If something is popular, it must be overrated type of mentality. After finally sitting down and playing through Junior's, seeing it completely blind for my first time ever, I will never in my life think like that ever again. This game truly has made me more passionate to create content more than any other game ever has. Set your expectations as high as you want, and I guarantee Junior's will still blow them out of the water. We play as an unnamed paranormal investigator. We're assigned with exploring the supernatural presence of the restaurant Junior's. As I'm sure you may have guessed, yes, this is the same Junior's that can be seen in the Midnight Motorist minigame from Pizzeria Simulator. We wake up in a place called the Barrens, which seems to be a limbo between life and death. Looking up, we can see what I assume to be our own brain, and we soon meet a character named Paul Bear. Throughout this game, we don't learn much about Paul Bear, but he is the only friend we have throughout the game. Paul Bear explains that there is an evil presence inside of the Junior's establishment, only ever referring to it as the Ghost. Eventually, we strike a deal with Paul Bear. He agrees to help us with our investigation of Junior's, and we agreed to help Paul Bear find freedom from the Ghost by defeating it in one way or another. With that, we head to bed and start our first night. Usually, the way I talk about nights in FNAF games is pretty basic. I bring up which threats are introduced, how to deal with them, and throw in a dick joke or something. However, Junior's does the entire FNAF formula so differently from any other FNAF game I've seen, so covering this is going to be a fun change of pace. To start, Junior's completely gets rid of the sit and survive style of gameplay that most other FNAF games have. The game still has the classic 6 nights, however, each night isn't completed once you've made it to an arbitrary time limit. Instead, similar to a game like Pizzeria Simulator, progression is based on finishing tasks. Except the key difference between the tasks in Pizzeria Simulator and the tasks in Junior's is that one of those games has super fun tasks that I look forward to doing, and the other game is fucking Pizzeria Simulator. But what exactly are the tasks in Junior's? I'm so glad you asked, because these tasks are the sole reason why this game is so amazing. Throughout the night, the ghost Paul Bear was telling us about will enter one of the animatronics at random. It's our job to watch the cameras for weird anomalies and figure out which animatronic is possessed. And each night, you will have to correctly identify where the ghost is more and more times. On night 1, you need to correctly identify the ghost 2 times, and with each subsequent night, that number goes up by 1. But before we really get into that, there's something else that this game does that I wasn't expecting. Typically in FNAF games, the animatronics will make their way to your office and try to attack you. This is actually not the case in Junior's. The animatronics will never come to your office. Well, at least not in the typical FNAF way, but I'll cover that in a minute. The tools at our disposal are pretty minimal. We have our cameras, control panel, and our repair room. Throughout the course of the night, if you check your control panel, you will be able to see the condition of each of the 6 animatronics. Yes, 6. You've got the main 4, with the addition of the marionette and balloon bitch, or as this game calls him, balloon baby. As the night progresses, the condition of each of these characters will decrease. If they ever go completely empty, they'll use your ass as sustenance and gobble it up. At any time, you can send one of the animatronics onto a conveyor belt that will bring the character to your repair room. Once inside the repair room, you can quickly fix them and send them back into the pizzeria. This will cause their condition to go back up to 100. However, you have to be careful, because if you send the possessed animatronic to your office, it's game over. Another thing to note is that you can't send more than one character to your repair room at a time. Moving on to the actual ghost hunting part of this game. As mentioned previously, there are 6 characters that the ghost can possess. Both at the start of the night and directly after identifying the possessed character, you will get a grace period where no animatronic is possessed. You should use that time to send the lowest conditioned animatronic to your office to be repaired. There are multiple different cues to tell you who the possessed animatronic is. It seems like throughout the nights, new clues are introduced. However, I cannot find a distinct list of what clues get introduced each night, so I'm going to be guessing based on my experience. If you know that I'm wrong, let me know in the comments below. There are 2 clues that are introduced on night 1. The first one is pretty easy: camera flickering. When an animatronic is possessed, they have a chance to cause the camera that they are currently on to start flickering. The cameras by default flicker their lights, so this is pretty subtle, but if you look closely at an actual flickering camera, you'll be able to tell that the ghost is on it because between the flickering, the cameras will have a brief period where they go black. That sounds pretty easy, I hear you saying, and while yes, it is, this is another part of the game that I think is super cool. There aren't an insane amount of cameras to look through, and it's very common that multiple characters will be visible on a camera at the same time. So this brings up the possible problem. If the cameras are flickering on a camera, but multiple characters are present, how do we figure out which of the animatronics is actually the possessed one? This right here, this conflict that you have to figure out, is the main reason why I love this game so much. It's such a simple problem, but the way you go about solving it can be different depending on your playstyle. This is honestly the coolest mechanic I've ever seen out of any FNAF game, and I don't think it's ever going to be beat. So, what was my strategy? Let's start with the hypothetical that we'll use throughout this video. Let's say we're looking at a camera that has Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy present on it. The camera is flickering, so we know that either Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, or Foxy are the possessed animatronic. The first thing I would do is either send Balloon Bitch or the marionette to the conveyor belt, since I know full well it can't be one of them. So I just pick whoever has lower condition. Then I would constantly keep my eye on all 4 animatronics on that camera until 1 or more of them left. Once they left, let's say for example Freddy and Chica leave, I would stay on the camera to see if the flickering persisted. If it did, then I'd know it can't be Freddy or Chica. Let's say Foxy left next and Bonnie stayed on the camera. If the lights stopped flickering, then I'd know for a fact it has to be Foxy. And if I really wanted to double check, I could find the camera where Foxy left to and see that the lights are still flickering. But as I've said, that is only 2 of the clues that are introduced on this night. What's the other? Handprints. I should mention that once the ghost possesses a character, only 1 of the clues will become present in that character until it is found. And from what I can tell, they never switch which clue they have until the ghost is found. Handprints are pretty simple. When a possessed character leaves a camera, they will leave a handprint behind on the lens of the camera. So let's go back to our hypothetical again. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, and Foxy are all on 1 camera. Freddy and Chica leave, and after doing so, we spot a handprint on the lens. That means we now know that the ghost has to be in either Freddy or Chica. So we can send either Foxy, Bonnie, the marionette, or Balloon Bitch to the conveyor belt, and all that's left is to watch Freddy or Chica. Whoever we choose, we wait for them to leave a camera. If Chica leaves and a handprint isn't seen, that means the possessed character has to be Freddy. And with that, night 1 is in the bag. After the night, we head back to the Barrens and talk to Paul Bear again. He explains that he himself chooses to stay in the Barrens because the ghost won't go there. Pussy-ass ghost Paul Bear is afraid of another ghost. Don't question it. It's kind of like those people who are afraid of other people. What do we call those things? Oh, yeah, moderators. Anyways, night 2 time. Night 2 doesn't appear to add any new clues. However, I will take this time to talk about how Paul Bear can aid in our investigations throughout the night. If at any point you're confused on who the ghost may be hiding in, once per night you can go to the control panel and actually ask Paul Bear who he thinks it is. He'll be able to narrow it down to 2 characters. Do you need this to beat the nights? No. But I do think it's kind of neat that it's available if you're struggling. I only ever used it once throughout my playthrough on accident because I didn't know that clicking on this would actually cause him to give me a hint. Also, if you want to watch my full playthrough, you can do so on my second channel, Dxtr Black. It's also on this night where I want to bring up the marionette and Balloon Bitch. Since you can never actually see either of them on the cameras, you may be wondering how you're supposed to be able to tell if they are possessed. I'll talk about the marionette later, so for now I'll talk about Balloon Bitch. His mechanic is actually incredibly simple, and I honestly think it's one of the weakest mechanics in the entire game. All you have to do to check if Balloon Bitch is possessed is look at your control panel. If his condition number is freaking the fuck out, he's possessed. If it's not, he's not. That's it. Again, I don't really think that this has a good reason for existing. Maybe the dev just wanted a 6th character so that there would be 3 on each side on the control panel, but I feel like it would have been much more interesting if you just allowed Balloon Bitch to be seen on the camera like the main 4. He could have been made to be a more challenging character. Since he's smaller than everyone else, having him hide in the cameras and be immune to the motion sensor could have been a super interesting challenge. But let me know what you guys think about Balloon Bitch in the comments. After completing night 2, we find a VHS tape. Watching it shows a claymation of Freddy carrying an animatronic limb up to a door. The door has a note on it that says, "Beware the mangle." Looking up, Freddy appears to see said mangle looming down on him, and the cutscene comes to a close. Heading back to the Barrens, we ask Paul Bear about what we saw on the tape. He says he believes that the ghost is trying to build itself a body in the form of the mangle, and that it's possessing the other characters to bring the parts to it. Appearing that we're now on a timer, we know that we have to do something, so we head to sleep and move on to night 3. Night 3 introduces one new clue that the characters can use: camera movement. This one is pretty simple. However, I should start by explaining how the cameras work a little bit more. Typically in FNAF games, the camera will slowly pan back and forth as you look at them. In Juniors, you have to manually move the cameras to see the full picture using WASD. The camera movement clue does exactly what you'd think. If you're moving the cameras, the ghost can cause it to jerk in a direction you're not moving it in.
My camera got fucked a little bit, the weird control. I don't know if that was me fucking around or if that was the heathen. Whoa. My camera just fucking zipped.
Using that, you can follow the exact same method as the flickering clue. However, the camera will not jerk if you aren't moving the cameras, so you'll need to get into the habit of doing that often. Although that really shouldn't be a problem since, again, you can't see the whole camera unless you move it. This is also the night where I want to talk about the marionette and how she works. Just like Balloon Bitch, you can't see the marionette on the cameras. However, you can hear her. You can tell which camera she is on by listening for the music box. If you hear it, then you know that the marionette is on whichever camera you're looking at. Fundamentally, is this different from the 4 main characters? No. However, I do think it's a super fun addition to the formula, where if we were using our hypothetical again from earlier, let's imagine all 4 of the main characters are on a camera and the camera is jerking in a random direction when we move it. Then all 4 characters leave at the same time, but the camera is still somehow jerking. Then you notice that you've been hearing the music box the whole time and just weren't paying attention. Now you know that it has to be the marionette. It's not that it's hard to figure out, but it may be something that slips your mind as you're so focused on trying to find the ghost. I love the marionette in this game, and if you couldn't guess from my constant glaze, it's the best marionette I've ever seen out of any FNAF game. After completing night 3, we find another tape. On it, we watch the ghost leave Freddy and move to Bonnie. Then see Bonnie carry another piece of the mangle to the secret door. This is another thing I really like about this game. Even though you can't feel it, you know both you and Paul Bear are in a race against the clock. As with every passing night, the mangle gets closer and closer to being completed. And you know that once it's finished, your chances of winning become slim to none. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear isn't present. Climbing up a ladder, we find him in a tree looking out at the brain. We tell him that our investigation ends soon. Paul Bear mentions that the spirits know he's in the Barrens with us by now, and we devise a plan to break into the secret room, the basement, and get to the mangle before it's put together. Sharing a moment of solace together, we head back into the restaurant. Somehow, this game is actually making me care about a character, which is insane to say given the fact I'm talking about a FNAF game right now. But regardless, it's on to night 4. Night 4 introduces the most ball-busting clue we've ever seen: camera malfunctions. This does exactly what you'd think. The possessed animatronic will cause a malfunction on whatever camera they are on. That means if we go back to our hypothetical, Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, and the marionette are all on the same camera. One of them becomes possessed, so we lose the ability to see that camera. Fuck. Continuing to watch the cameras, we hear the music box stop, but the malfunction continues. We now know that it can't be the marionette. All of a sudden, the camera pops back on, and all we can see is Bonnie. Well, now we know that it can't be Bonnie. Now we look around the cameras until we find the malfunctioning one again. As we look, we spot Foxy on a camera. We now know that the ghost is either Freddy or Chica. Oh fuck. You quickly check the control panel and see that Freddy and Chica are both at 15 stability. What are we to do? We don't have enough time to keep watching. So it is now our time to make a decision you will probably have to make at least once in your playthrough. Praying to the RNG gods that the ghost isn't in Freddy as you send him down the conveyor belt. Freddy finally arrives and you don't die, so you now know it has to be Chica. Realistically, this exact situation doesn't happen all too often, but I do think this malfunction clue is by far the most stressful out of all of them. I think it adds a new type of tension that the game needed. I love this clue. I think it adds a whole new interesting way of analyzing the threat. It's fantastic. After completing the night, we find another VHS. In it, we see the ghost possess Chica while she's sleeping, and she takes another piece to the basement. Heading back to the Barrens, we keep it short and sweet with Paul Bear. He says he knows of a way to the basement, and we tell him that after we wrap up our investigation tonight, we'll meet back up with him and head there to put an end to this. Heading to bed, it's on to night 5. Night 5 adds no new clues, only being a more difficult version of Night 4, and by more difficult, I mean we have to find the ghost 7 times instead of 6. I'm really out of things to talk about when it comes to the night sections, as I've talked about everything that's relevant throughout them. All we have left to talk about now is in the basement. After completing Night 5, we get one last tape revealing all of the characters awakening the Mangle, a foreshadow of what's to come. Heading back to the Barrens, Paul Bear explains the plan. We'll go along with whatever the Mangle has planned and lure her into the Barrens and trap her forever. We say our final goodbyes to Paul Bear and enter the basement, not knowing what's ahead of us. Upon entering the basement, we're greeted to a new office. The basement serves as Night 6, the boss fight night. I'm just gonna put this out here right now. I am not a fan of Night 6, gameplay-wise at least. I think it looks great, and I think it serves excellent story purposes, but I think it's a massive step back from the core loop of the game. The basement is set up exactly how the office from FNAF 2 is. 2 open vents to your left and right, and a large hallway in front of you. You have access to a flashlight, cameras, and a Bonnie mask. Yes, it's literally just FNAF 2, even equipped with a music box to constantly wind throughout. Maybe this is the reason I don't like this night. Just kidding, it's not a maybe. Of course this is the reason I don't like it. I'm not a huge FNAF 2 fan personally, so seeing it in a FNAF game that I really like puts a bad taste in my mouth. However, I'm not going to let that discourage me. How does this night play, and are there any redeeming qualities? Throughout the night, all you have to do is wind the music box and put on your mask whenever the animatronic enters your office. If you ever see Foxy in the hallway, flash your light at him. Guys, it's literally just FNAF 2. I really don't have to explain this to you. The characters even look different on this night, and in the extras menu, this version of them is called Withered. It's FNAF 2. That's it. That is until the halfway mark. What the fuck? We were the Mangle. What the fuck? Conveyor belt. Yo! What the fuck? Yo, the time's all fucked. What the fuck is that thing? Oh, nah. Halfway through the night, your control panel will be forced up. You'll be able to see the conveyor belt and watch as each character makes its way through. Several sticky notes ridiculing you. Every single animatronic sacrifices its body to the Mangle, and it's finally time for the final fight. The Mangle enters the building, and now is the perfect time to talk about how fucking disgusting these character models look, especially Mangle. The level of detail in these characters is insane. Seeing Mangle on the cameras is probably the most uncomfortable thing about this entire game. She's so gross, and it's super cool. But I do have to ask the question, why the fuck do they look like this? Is our main character going insane and imagining that they look like monsters more than they do? Or did the manufacturers of these robots actually design the most fucked up, creepy robots of all time? Anyways, once the Mangle spawns, the way this night is played changes. Now, for some unknown reason, Mangle has an owl attached to her. Does that make sense? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I can't for the fuck of me figure out what that might be. Occasionally, this owl head will appear in either of your two vents. When it does, all you have to do is put the mask on until it leaves. Mangle herself has a chance to appear in the hallway. As far as I can tell, she has no sound cues, so you have to constantly check for her yourself. When she's there, hold the flashlight on her until she leaves. Finally, we have the most soul-sucking, nutsack-tearing, butthole-puckering mechanic in the entire goddamn game. The Ghost. The Ghost can appear on any camera. You'll be able to tell because you can see her hand. When you see the Ghost, all you have to do is hold the light on the camera until it disappears. You might be asking yourself, why the fuck is that a problem? That sounds even easier than the owl. Hell, I almost guarantee you will never be able to see the cameras in your entire fucking life. Why? Well, as I'm sure you're aware if you've ever played a FNAF game before, when a character moves from one camera to another, it's very common for the camera to go black for a moment. This is done so that you don't see the characters teleporting out of sight. However, the Mangle moves so goddamn cocksucking fast through the cameras that they will be black for about, 90% of the fucking night. Meaning that, very rarely will you be able to check if the Ghost is on a camera. Could we stop? Could we stop? Literally, what the fuck am I supposed to do? She's moving around the camera so fast, I can't even fucking look to hold the light on her. I feel like this is unintentionally difficult, but it's actually so bullshit, it's not even close to fun. This is the main reason why I dislike Night 6 as much as I do. Dying because I couldn't find the Ghost because I can't see the fucking cameras for more than 0.3 seconds every 14 decades is not fun. It ruins the pacing of the game and destroys all immersion I had in the situation. But if you can manage to not get fingered by the Ghost, you'll survive to 6 AM and lure the Ghost into the Barrens. The Ghost grabs Paul Bear, revealing he himself is a costume, not an actual plush bear. Surprise, surprise. This should have been obvious. The Ghost tells Paul Bear she's going to kill us, but we quickly run up behind her while she's distracted and fucking gank her ass. Dead kids! Rah! Rah! The screen cuts to black. We learn 5 years later, Juniors would reopen after some significant rebranding, focusing on, quote, family fun and above all, safety. A line that should be familiar sounding if you've played the official games. Finally, a character named Jeremy is asked when they're free to start the job. Let's pause. This twist is pretty damn cool. We saw an exact replica of the FNAF 2 office on Night 6, and now we learn that Jeremy Fitzgerald is being hired. Of course, knowing the official lore, Jeremy was the night guard in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, and the family fun and above all safety is something the phone guy says in FNAF 2 as well. Which would lead me to believe that the rebranding of Juniors was to Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in the form of the pizzeria we see in Five Nights at Freddy's 2, using the toy animatronics and the layout we find in the basement. But with that final awesome twist, Juniors comes to a close. Overall, I think Juniors is unironically the best Five Nights at Freddy's game I've ever played, even beating out the official games. Sure, I'm not the biggest fan of the final boss night, but the rest of the game easily makes up for that shortcoming. Juniors is 100% at the top of my fan game tier list, and I highly doubt it will be losing that position anytime soon.
I've been covering FNAF games for quite a while, and every time I find a super unique game, I think to myself, there's no way any other FNAF game is going to be able to top that in creativity. But then, like clockwork, I find another one, and the game we'll be talking about today is no different. The game we'll be looking at today is called FNAF Showtime, a game made with Godot and is completely 3D, with hands down the most unique mechanic I've ever seen in a FNAF game before, and I can guarantee you've never seen anything like it either. So strap in as we dive into the exceptionally difficult world of FNAF Showtime. Jumping right into night 1, there's plenty to talk about. To start, we don't actually just get booted directly into the office. Instead, we start at the entrance and can actually freely roam around the building to get a feel for our surroundings, which I always think is really nice. The layout of the building is incredibly different from any other FNAF game I've ever played, with the office being directly in the center of the building. This game consists of 9 cameras, and I mention that number for a very specific reason I'll mention later. Walking around the building, we stumble into the main dining room and can get a glance at single-handedly the most uncomfortable animatronics I legitimately think I've ever seen. These things are rancid and disgusting. They got the British treatment with their teeth, too. That's nasty. What the fuck? Oh my. Look at that pot belly, bro. Dude, that cheek is nasty. That cheek is actually so gross. I don't like it at all. I don't think any kid would want to come to a restaurant with the characters looking like this. Anyways, moving to our office, we can talk about the tools we have at our disposal. And strap in, because this might just be the most creative and horrifying FNAF game we've ever covered. In showtime, you're stuck in the cameras once you start the night. You can never drop them, which means you can never close your doors. Not that that's an issue anyways, as both of the entrances to your office don't even have doors. This is where those 9 cameras I mentioned become super important. Your cameras are controlled by your keyboard, not your mouse, using the keys Q, W, E, A, S, D, Z, X, and C. If you take a look at the cameras, you'll be able to see which letter correlates to each camera. This is a system that took me very, very long to get used to, but it's actually super cool. Now, when it comes to looking around the cameras, showtime isn't like most FNAF games. The cameras don't pan back and forth by themselves. Instead, you're in charge of manually controlling the cameras using your mouse, and you have full control of the cameras, being able to point them in literally any direction you want, which I think is really cool. You'll even notice that there's a camera in your office and you can actually see yourself at your desk. But if we can't leave the cameras and there's no way to close the doors, how are we supposed to defend ourselves from the threats this game introduces? That is an amazing question. But before we answer it, let's talk about the 2 threats this night introduces. Night 1 introduces both Bonnie and Chica. I'm going to be talking about them at the same time since they both behave in the same way. Obviously, their goal is to reach your office, so that's exactly what they'll do. Something I really like about this game is you can always watch them move around the building. They don't have just one static frame for each camera. As this game is a 3D environment, the characters actually do roam around. Now, onto how to defend yourself. Well, your camera is equipped with the ability to reset the animatronics and force them to go back to where they started. And how do you activate this? Well, let's just say I hope you guys have been practicing aim labs because you're gonna need it. By holding left click, you can shoot a signal out of the camera where the crosshair is pointing. If you see Bonnie or Chica anywhere on the map, aim the crosshair at their head and hold down left click. Do this for long enough and a little jingle will play and their eyes will glow yellow, signaling that they will return to their starting location. Is that not like the coolest shit you've ever seen? I've never seen anything like that in a FNAF game before. I love it when fan devs try something new, and I think this one really nailed it, because this makes this game incredibly stressful. And that's for one main reason. You'll notice that there are a bunch of employee-only doors all around the building, and that's for a good reason. If the characters could only come from one area, it'd be way too easy to just camp their spawn points. So, when a character goes into attack mode, they will appear from literally any of the employee doors around the entire map. They can start in the main dining room, they can start in the entrance, the 2 party rooms, Pirates Cove, the arcade. It doesn't matter. They can come from anywhere, needing you to constantly be monitoring everything and listening for footsteps to see where the characters are going to come from. It is hard to put into words just how cool and creative this mechanic is. Nope. Get the fuck back in there, dude. I want nothing to do with you. This is gonna be fun. This one's gonna be fun, dude. Holy shit. These characters move around a lot, so you will have to be tracking their heads constantly, which I personally think is really fun. And I think it's absolutely terrifying when you hear a character's footsteps, but you can't quite tell which room they're coming from. That mad dash looking around the cameras to try and find them in time really adds to the tension this game builds. Dude, where? Where are they going? I cannot keep track of these guys for shit, dude. And it's only going to get crazier and more difficult as we continue. So let's move on to night 2. Guys, I've got some great news for you. After a long time of waiting, the Skags plushie is finally live. I've been working with Makeshift to make the perfect Skags plushie possible, and I think he's turned out perfect. We obviously talk a lot about Five Nights at Freddy's on this channel, so I figured it'd be great to make him in the exact style as the FNAF plushies, which means he'll easily be able to sit on your desk or shelf without falling over. You guys made this possible. I could have never done this without you. To everyone who supported the petition a few months back, thank you guys so much. But you guys have to be fast, as Skags is only around for a limited time. Once this campaign is over, he'll be gone forever, so you really don't want to miss out. This is hands down the coolest thing that has ever happened to me as a YouTuber, and I never thought 2 years ago when I started this channel that it would get me this far in life. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate every single one of you. You guys have made my dreams come true, and this is one small way I can celebrate that. So go get yourself a Skags plushie before time runs out. He's the perfect gift for anyone who likes stuffed animals, and I guarantee if you put this guy in your bed, the Huzz are gonna flock to you like birds. So that's always a plus too. Thank you guys so much for all the support, and thank you to Makeshift for making this plushie with me and putting up with my constant tweaks to make sure that Skags is as perfect as he is. Sorry for interrupting. Let's get back to the video. Night 2 only adds one new threat to the game, and that threat is Foxy. Honestly, not that big of a deal when compared to the other characters and their bullshit. Foxy is very simple. He stays in Pirate's Cove the entire game. He'll slowly move through different phases before charging at your office. Throughout the night, just make sure you're shooting him to reset his position, and he really shouldn't be an issue at all. No, where the challenge of this game comes into play is Bonnie and Chica, and the awkwardness of aiming and resetting them, as a lot of the time it feels very unresponsive. One of the strategies I came up with was at the start of the night, pointing all of the cameras at every possible place where the animatronics can come from. That way I can watch all 9 of them at once and see which characters come from which doors. And this would be the perfect strategy, except for 2 main problems. Let's start with the smaller issue. But don't get it twisted, it's still a pretty big issue. The characters move very quickly when they're walking. That by itself isn't a problem. What is a problem is the inconsistent amount of time it takes to send the characters back. Sometimes when you shoot them to reset, you only have to hold the mouse down for 3 seconds, and other times you have to hold it for upwards of 8 seconds. This massive inconsistency makes it very difficult to deal with the characters properly. But now onto the much bigger issue, which I admit is partially a skill issue on my end, but it also shows one of the game's flaws. An animatronic can be in a room. No shit. However, if you're looking at a character in a room from a camera that is not in the same room, you will not be able to reset them, even if you can clearly see them and have your crosshair directly on them. I think this is a problem. As mentioned earlier, it can take several seconds to send these characters back. And they're very fast, so they will be switching cameras frequently. And you'll have to match what cameras they're going to constantly, since you can't reset them from the room that the camera isn't in, even if you see them. The part where this is a skill issue is, I haven't been able to learn the map perfectly, to know off the top of my head how all of the rooms are attached. When you control the direction of each camera, and there's 9 of them, it will very, very quickly become incredibly disorienting to even figure out which area of the building you're in, let alone track 2 characters that are constantly walking around all the time. Again, this specific part is a skill issue for sure, but I do think my previous point is an actual problem. Hey, got my fucking aimbot on, bro. What the fuck? This is cheating. Bonnie's cheating. The fuck, where is he? Oh shit. Dude. Where the fuck is he? What the fuck? Dude, where the fuck was he? I could not find his ass. The fuck he go to, bitch? But with that out of the way, let's move on to night 3. Night 3 is actually a doozy, guys, I can't lie. While no new threat is introduced, an entire new mechanic is implemented that makes this game extraordinarily harder than you could ever imagine. What is that mechanic, you ask? Well, let me tell you, pretty much Satan. Now, at specific times throughout the night, all of the lights to the building will be turned off for at least one in-game hour, sometimes longer, making it incredibly fucking difficult to see anything. So difficult that through my playthrough, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I actually had to change my graphics settings to make it easier for me to see, because there's no way in hell I would have completed this otherwise. However, there is something I want to praise this game for when it comes to introducing this mechanic, as thankfully it didn't just drop it directly on your forehead like I do with babies. Instead, it makes the early half of the night incredibly easy. While the phone guy is talking to you and the lights are on, only Foxy and Chica will be active, making it very easy for the first 2 in-game hours. Once 2 a.m. strikes, the power goes out for the first time, and it will come back on at 3 a.m. During this time, still only Foxy and Chica are active, and Chica will really only attack 1, maybe 2 times at most. Only after the lights come back on at 3 a.m. will Bonnie become active and start attacking. Once again at 4 a.m. the power will turn back off, wherein it will never turn back on for the remaining 2 hours of the night. So you get time to get a feel for the lights being off by only having to deal with Chica, who moves far slower than Bonnie does, and then they ease you into dealing with both of them at the same time. I think this is such a good way of introducing such a debilitating mechanic. It doesn't feel like this game is just prying open my asshole and filling it with its saliva. It's properly teaching the mechanic without directly making you feel like it's teaching you. This is a perfect execution of a mechanic like this, and as much as I hate the lights going out, this game made me hate it probably as little as I possibly could hate it, which I think is pretty cool. But with that new AIDS out of the way, let's move on to night 4. Night 4 is an interesting night, and another night that really shows off how wonderful this game is at introducing mechanics to you. With me just talking about how well the light function was introduced, this night has a brand new character so heinous, yet the developer was able to introduce them in a nice way, or at least as nice as possible considering how much this guy sucks. Night 4 introduces Freddy, the big kahuna himself. The role he plays is both very simple and the most terrifying at the exact same time. His goal is, of course, to get into your office. However, the way he does so is what makes him so scary. Unlike Bonnie and Chica, who wander around the building and then enter your office, when Freddy appears from a door, he will make a beeline directly for your office with no stops along the way. And Freddy is fast. Very, very fast. Freddy's music will start playing during the times he can attack. During the music, you'll hear him laugh. When he does laugh, that's how you'll know when he's about to open a door. So you'd better drop everything you're doing to focus on him, because once he exits one of the doors, you have approximately 6 seconds to deal with him before he starts digging in your butt. Now, I mentioned they introduced Freddy very nicely. How exactly did they do that? Well, Freddy activates while the lights are off on this night, so that's not very kind. However, during this Freddy attack section, both Bonnie and Chica will not be moving around, so this entire moment is spent focusing on Freddy as you understand how he works. Again, another beautiful execution of a mechanic like this. I dislike when FNAF games introduce a mechanic while everything else is happening with no explanation of how the character works. I think having the player figure it out on their own can be a good thing, but not while everything else is happening at the same time. Wonderful integration, but it makes me very scared for Night 5. Speaking of, let's move on to that. Night 5 overall doesn't add anything new. In general, it's just a much harder version of Night 4, and I'll explain why. Remember how I said that this game did a really good job of teaching the Freddy mechanic? Yeah, well on Night 5, let's just say they're not so nice. There are 2 blackouts on Night 5. The first is very kind. It lasts 60 seconds and consists only of Freddy, just like Night 4. That made me think for a moment, just a moment, this game was about to be very kind. But boy, was I wrong. The second blackout happens at 5 a.m. and runs throughout the final hour. During this final blackout, all 4 of the characters are active, and it's by far the most stressful section this game has ever had. I was skilled and based enough to beat it on my second attempt, but that's only because I'm literally the hunky chiseled god. 2 additional things to talk about on this night. The first is that it reveals another Freddy mechanic. That being, he can attack while the lights aren't out as well, except there is a big difference. Something you'll notice about Bonnie and Chica is that Bonnie is significantly faster than Chica is. During the lights out sections, Freddy will be Bonnie's speed, which is why he's so scary. But while the lights are on, Freddy will move at Chica's speed, still making him a big threat since he goes right for your office, but also makes him easier to deal with. The last thing I want to talk about before we continue is Golden Freddy. During my playthrough of Night 5, which you can see over on my second channel, Dxtr Black, I actually had Golden Freddy appear. He appears in your office, and I didn't dare look at him with the office camera, but you can see I was looking at him through one of the party rooms. But with that, that's all Night 5 has to offer. I assumed there would be some form of cutscene after completing it, but no, I was not so lucky. Instead, we're just thrown right into Night 6, where I'm sure we'll have just a perfect happy-go-lucky time. So it turns out it wasn't actually a Night 6. Upon walking to your desk to start the night, you're greeted to the extra screen where you can play any of the previous nights again, do a custom night, a real-time night, and do 5 unique challenges. So as far as we're concerned, that's all FNAF Showtime has to offer. I'm just kidding. Of course we're going to talk about the challenge modes. So let's quickly go over the first and most boring one of them all, Blackout. As the name suggests, the entire night has the power out. So say hello to Usain Bolt Freddy pile driving your rear from the back for the entire night. Not a very interesting challenge mode, but definitely a challenge mode nonetheless. The next challenge is called Find the Cupcakes, my personal favorite challenge mode, and you'll never guess what it is we have to do on this night. Throughout the cameras, 10 cupcakes will be hidden. All you have to do is find each of them and reset them to collect them. The only threat active on this night is Chica, which makes sense since it is her cupcake, but I do feel it makes this challenge far too easy. I think having all the characters active but at lower AI values would make this challenge much more interesting. This next challenge we're going to talk about is very, very evil. Like, think of the most evil thing you could possibly imagine, right? Think about it. Think of its shadow, right? Start with like a shadow, just got like a shadow ball, and now mold that shadow. Put it between your fingers, let it slide like you're making some clay ball in art class in 5th grade, right? Shape it into the most annoying, fucking terrifying piece of garbage you can possibly think of. Is the shadow you molded the shape of Balloon Boy? Because if it is, you guessed this challenge night perfectly. This challenge is called Camera Problems, and I bet you can take a perfect guess as to what that means. During this night, while all characters are active, Balloon Boy will occasionally, and very frequently I might add, cause one of the cameras to break. When he breaks a camera, he himself will be present in the room of that camera and you'll have to reset him. But how do you do that if you can't access the camera? Well, you'll have to find him in that room from another camera and reset him through that one. And Balloon Boy, we all know him, is just an asshole. Piece of shit, smelly ass, goofy ass, shitty ass, pissy ass, farty ass, shardy ass, stupid ass, dumb ass, bitch ass, dunce ass, fuck ass boy. This is an incredibly difficult challenge, and I love that a new character was created specifically for it. I think that's really cool. The next challenge is called Above and Below, and did something I would have never expected. All it does is add a brand new character alongside all of the other ones we've already been having to deal with, that character being Mangle, who is by far the most terrifying character of them all. You'll notice that above each employee door, you'll also find a vent. These vents are where Mangle comes from. And the challenge for Mangle comes from both her being on the ceiling and by being the fastest character in the entire game, even outspeeding Bonnie and Freddy. That's all this challenge is, but holy shit, Mangle is so fucking fast and it makes this challenge one of the hardest. But I still don't think it's quite harder than Balloon Boy's. The next challenge is called Divided Attention, and you'll be able to guess exactly what this night is going to offer the moment you load into it. That being the fact that you can hear a music box. And if you check the prize corner, you'll see a small music box on the counter. That's right! This challenge just adds another fucking Foxy to constantly look after. Isn't that just fucking amazing? Yeah, needless to say, I'd like to move on as fast as possible. But with that, that's all of the challenges that FNAF Showtime has to offer. And overall, I think FNAF Showtime is an incredible game. Even though there are only 4 characters throughout the main night sections, this game proves to be one of the most difficult I've ever played. Learning how to track the characters and prioritizing them is exceptionally difficult, but it's so cool. One of my favorite genres of games is roguelikes. I also, as I'm sure you could have guessed, really like Five Nights at Freddy's games. I've only built a whole career off of it, so I'm sure you could have figured that out. So I bet you can imagine my pleasant surprise when I was told that there was a Five Nights at Freddy's game that was also a roguelike. The moment I learned of this, I downloaded it as fast as I could and started filming videos because I just knew even before playing it that it was going to be getting a Dxtr White video, and here we are now. You guys know what game I'm talking about. You can see the length of this video. I very clearly like this game a lot. So sit back, relax, and join me as we dive into the chaotic world of Too Many Nights. Unlike most FNAF games, Too Many Nights doesn't follow any storyline or the typical FNAF formula. Instead, it acts as an endless minigame that doesn't stop until you fail. Although I'm sure you already knew that considering everyone on Earth has played a roguelike before. At the start of each run, you will get to pick a character, of which there are many. Each character gives you a different set of abilities, with each having a list of pro and cons. You don't start with all of them and will have to gradually unlock them by doing specific tasks. I'll go over them in a bit. After picking a character, you will have to select 3 animatronics to put into the pizzeria. And this is where this game gets brilliant. You get to choose 3 animatronics yourself. The game will never choose them for you, and your initial choices will be random at the start of each run. However, if you really don't like your starting options, you can press R to re-roll your first pick as much as you'd like. As I'm sure you could have guessed, there are several animatronics in Too Many Nights. Each has a unique mechanic, and it will be up to you to plan out which animatronics you bring along, and control how they will be forced to interact with each other. Each animatronic falls into a certain category. You have your door animatronics, your camera animatronics, your mask animatronics, your vent animatronics, your flashlight animatronics, and what I'm going to call your nuisance animatronics. Each of these categories serves its own purpose, and generally speaking, picking multiple animatronics from the same category will make your gameplay experience easier. Before I really start talking about the characters, I'd like to explain the rest of the experience of a run. To start, after selecting your first 3 animatronics, the run will begin. After completing a night, you will be forced to add 1 new character. Every few nights, you will also be forced to add a penalty. These penalties fall into 2 categories: your general penalties and your character penalties. I'll dive into each of these later as well. After selecting a penalty, you may get the chance to go to the shop and buy some items. Throughout the night, you will gain Faz coins from successfully defending yourself from the animatronics. Once again, I will get into these items later. Keep repeating this process until you eventually die, and boom, that's the gameplay loop of Too Many Nights. Of course, that was a very oversimplified explanation. So now we're going to dive into each of the animatronics, how they work, and to keep it interesting, I'll even throw each character into a tier list so that you can all argue about it in the comments. But hold up, guys. I want to take a little break here to tell you that this video is sponsored by me. For those of you who didn't know, I have channel memberships. I would never ask anyone to do this as I don't even have any interesting perks attached, but if you really enjoy what I do and would like to support me a little bit extra, that's a great way to do it. Also, if you'd like to actually get something for your money in return, I have a merch store with some designs I commissioned from a fan, the same fan who actually drew these new character PNGs. So if you'd like to have my silly little demon character on your clothes, then that's a great place to go do that. And hey, if enough people end up liking that stuff, I will 100% get some more created in the future, and maybe even commission some more fan artists for some uniqueness in art styles. You can find the link to that in the description of this video. Sorry for the interruption. Let's talk about everything that Too Many Nights has to offer. I'm just going to go down the list that appears on the wiki, and be prepared, there are a lot of animatronics. Editor, I'd say I'm sorry for what you're about to have to do, but that would be a lie. Let's go. Freddy is a camera animatronic, aka my personal least favorite type of animatronic. Freddy will start on stage and make his way towards your right door. All you have to do is occasionally stare at him on the cameras to make him go backwards. I'm sure you can guess why I'm not going to like a majority of these camera animatronics. If he ever reaches your door, he will never leave and you'll be forced to keep it closed for the rest of the night or die.
Freddy also has 5 penalties that have the option to be chosen when you have to select a penalty. The first is Mad Freddy, which will make you have to look at Freddy longer to make him go backwards. His second penalty is Branched, which gives him a chance to be able to attack your left door as well. And when you're playing this game, you will very quickly fall into a pattern, so having a character be able to switch up on you like this would very obviously throw you off. Stare Down is another Freddy penalty. This one is horrific. It makes Freddy never move backwards. Staring at him will only stall him. However, to compensate, he moves a lot slower, and the camera doesn't have to be up for you to be able to stall him. Invisifreddy is a penalty that I'm sure you could take a solid guess at what it does. That's right, it makes him fucking invisible. Isn't that great? Sure, a sound cue is added to his movements, but fuck that. That just sounds like AIDS. Finally, we have Nuh-uh, a penalty that's just so silly. When Freddy gets to your door, he will prevent the door from ever closing again throughout the rest of the night. Isn't that awesome? No, it isn't? Yeah, I know. Don't choose this one if you can help it. Overall, I'm not a fan of Freddy, but without penalties, he isn't the worst character in this game, so I'm going to give him a C tier. Bonnie is a door character, aka a character I usually like to pick. Bonnie starts on stage and makes his way to your left door. Once there, a sound cue will play, and you'll have to close the door and stare at him on the camera until he goes away. Then you can open the door again. Incredibly easy character, however he does have 3 penalties. Cutting is a penalty that makes both Bonnie and Chica take shorter paths to your doors. Because of how easy both of them are to deal with, this penalty isn't too bad. Quiet Steps makes Bonnie and Chica not make sound cues while at your door, so yeah, fuck that. No other words need to be said. And finally, Flipside is a penalty that will make Bonnie and Chica swap doors immediately after leaving the first door. Easily the second worst penalty these two have. Speaking of Bonnie and Chica, Chica is literally identical to Bonnie, except she attacks the right door instead of the left. And because of this, and how quick I am to pick these two, I'm putting both of them in S tier. Foxy isn't the worst character I've seen, but I did avoid choosing him for a very long time. Foxy will try to leave his stage in the ticket booth. Have your camera on him to stall him. If you don't, he'll charge at your door and bang on it, and make you lose a poop sock full of power. Foxy has 3 penalties and 1 item, which is pretty cool. Insta-Foxy is a penalty that will cause Foxy to instantly start in his last phase at the start of a night. This penalty actually isn't that bad at all, just let him charge right away and it's like the penalty isn't even there anymore. Hen House is a penalty that forces the camera to be up to stall Foxy, which actually is the most cancerous thing I've ever heard of. Haywire is the final penalty, which will make him attack your other door directly after attacking the first door. The only bad part about this is that him banging on your door drains power. And the item that Foxy has is called Good Guy, which makes Foxy not a threat. Looking at him will make him progress, and when he comes to your office, he'll give you a nice little gift like a good boy. Because of how much of a non-issue he is if you balance him properly with the other characters, I'm putting him in B tier. Mangle is a vent animatronic, and she's honestly not that big of a problem. She'll move through the cameras into one of your vents. All you have to do is put your mask on when she's in a vent. She will enter the office for a short period and then leave. I personally hate having to use the mask in this game, so I try my best to avoid characters that force that, but Mangle is probably the easiest of them. Mangle does have 3 penalties. Anger Management is a penalty that makes looking at Mangle speed her up. Aggressive Mangle is a penalty that makes Mangle force you to put the mask on for longer. And finally, Slithering In is a penalty that causes looking at Mangle in the vents to make her immediately appear in your office. Overall, I hate the mask mechanic. However, Mangle isn't the worst mask character in the game, so I'm giving her a C tier. Caroline, or the Marionette, behaves exactly how you'd expect her to. She's a music box. Hooray! Who could have expected that? If the music box winds down, for the rest of the night she will randomly teleport to a camera with a sound cue at random intervals. You will have to find her and stare at her if you don't want her to kill you. She does, however, have a whopping 6 fucking penalties, so that's just amazing. Let's go over all of them quickly. Winding down makes you have to wind the music box for longer. Moving box makes the music box move to a random camera every time you pull the camera down. AIDS. Muted music makes her not make a sound cue when she teleports to a camera. Show Stealer gives you less time to find her while she's away from the music box. Last Stand is really ass, by the way. When it turns 6 a.m., Caroline will teleport to a random camera, and the night will only end once you find her.
Dude, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't do anything about that. That's just fucking cooked, bro. I can't do nothing about that.
And finally, the worst penalty yet, Caroline Carousel, which will make her be away from the music box the entire night. Genuinely, never pick this penalty. Caroline is definitely annoying, but in all honesty, the music box is pretty forgiving until much later nights. So, because of this, I'm only putting her in D tier. Lizzie is the first non-FNAF canon character we'll be talking about. Fun fact, there are a lot of non-canon characters, but I think that's what adds to this game's charm. Lizzie herself isn't actually the threat. She spawns down bitty buds in your office while your camera is up. Simply hold your flashlight on them and they'll disappear. If there are too many, they'll call Lizzie and she will then kill you. Lizzie has 2 different penalties as well. Speedy Bud will make the bitty buds call Lizzie to your office faster, and Help Wanted will turn the brightly colored bitty buds into dark colored plush Lizzies, which are much harder to see in the very purple office. Lizzie is one of my favorite characters to see in my runs. I love flashlight characters, and I really love office characters. So because of this, I'm giving her S tier. BB is a bitch, but I'm sure you didn't need me to tell you that. And of course, they gave him the worst mechanic of all time. At random times, he will teleport to a random camera with a sound cue.
Hello.
You will have to find which camera he's on and hold the flashlight on him.
Bye-bye.
If that wasn't bad enough, his penalties make him even worse. Mute BB makes him not make a sound cue, which is actually just fucking torment. Don't pick this. I'm Moving will make him teleport to a second camera after you find him the first time. Little asshole. And Aggressive BB will force you to hold the light on him for longer. Literally, fuck that. I'm sure from the tone in my voice, you can tell I really don't like BB, so because of that, I'm obviously giving him an F tier. Sparky the dog is a camera character that makes me piss blood. He's in the storage room and has 4 phases he will move through before appearing in your office and forcing you to put the mask on for a decently long time. To prevent this, all you have to do is stare at him on the cameras, something I've already made clear I'm not a super huge fan of. He also has 3 penalties if your urine wasn't already red enough. Mad Sparky will force you to look at him on the cameras for longer to push him back. Sparky Speedy will make Sparky move faster, obviously. And Aggressive Sparky will make you put the mask on longer if he enters the office. I don't like camera characters. I hate the idea of staring at a character to stop them. D tier. Percy Poodle, yes, from Playtime with Percy, is easily one of the best characters in the game. Being an office flashlight animatronic, all he does is have multiple phases in front of the big office window. He'll start pounding on the glass in his final phase, and you'll then have to hold the flashlight on him to make him go back. He also only has 2 penalties, and both of them really aren't that bad. Aggressive Percy will make him only go back to his last stage the first time you deal with him, but only the first time, so who cares? And Mute Percy makes him make no sound cue when he's pounding on the glass, so just open your eyes and this won't be a problem. Percy is simple, Percy is always an easy pick, S tier. Rowan Rat, on the other hand, is actual fucking torment. At random times, he will appear in any of the 4 corners of the building. When you see him in one, shock him and he'll go away. You will also have the ability to use a radar to detect where he is and where he's going. Oh yeah, and you only have a certain number of shocks, so that's just terrible. He has 4 possible penalties, and all of them are worse than death. Aggressive Rowan gives you less time to shock him. No radar removes the fucking radar, making you constantly have to check all 4 corners yourself. Less shocks obviously gives you less shocks, as the name would suggest. And Invisirowan makes him fucking invisible. Fuck that. Never in a million years am I picking that shitty option. Rowan by himself isn't the worst, but if you get any of his penalties, which will happen eventually, he becomes a nightmare. So I'm putting him in D tier.
Maple is almost a good character, but because it's not the only character you'll be up against, it's hard to find it as an attractive pick. At the beginning of each night, it will require you to collect a certain amount of plushies. This number increases with its AI value. You will then have to search around the cameras for these plushies. If you don't find them all before 6 a.m., it'll kill you. Amazing mechanic, but again, it's not the only one, so it's really just more of a pain in the ass. It does have 3 penalties. What are those? Well, Early Killer will have it check if you have the plushies at 5 a.m. rather than 6. Hidden Counter will literally just make it not tell you how many plushies you need to find, which is bullshit.
and restock will add a timer to how fast you need to find the plushies. If you don't find them in time, it'll re-hide all the plushies again, forcing you to find them all in pretty much one go. Again, it's not the worst, but can easily get out of control on later nights when you start to only focus on certain cameras while it has the large plushie counter. So I'm going to give it a C tier. Noelle is another very interesting character that easily has the chance to be forgotten about. When you start the night, a pair of scissors will appear on a random camera. At complete random, Noelle can appear in the office with a sound cue. When it does, you need to find the scissors and click them to make it go away. The scissors will then teleport to another random camera. If you don't click the scissors, it'll force you to put the mask on for a few seconds, which is a long time in this game. Noelle, of course, has 3 penalties. Pull down will make it forcefully pull down the camera when it enters your office, which could honestly be seen as a good thing. Bro, that's not okay. I fucked myself. Having the force pull down from Noelle mixed with the Roby absolutely fucking creamed my ass, dude. Aggressive Noelle is terrible. When it enters your office, if you click any camera aside from the one with the scissors, it will immediately make you put the mask on. And Crazed Teddy will cause it to insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. A certain item does affect Noelle, however. If you have Chill Pill, you will get 4 additional seconds to put the mask on when it attacks you, which is a lot of time in this game. I'm not a huge fan of Noelle, especially not when it has Aggressive on, so because of this, I'm going to put it in C tier. Melatonin is a real bitch of a character. It moves around the cameras, but it's invisible when it does. You'll hear it laughing in one of your ears, and on the 3rd laugh, you'll have to close the door of whichever side it's on until you hear it leave. It has 2 penalties that just serve as the salt in the wound as well. Switch Up is easily the worst. Before it moves, you'll have to check the dining room to see a counter for how many laughs it'll have before attacking, now being randomized from 2 to 4. Unplanned only makes its first laugh on the correct side, needing you to remember which side it was originally on. I don't like characters that I can't see. I also find it really hard to keep a timer in your head like you need to do with Melatonin, so because of this, I'm putting it in D tier. Lydia is a dog. She'll be in the ticket booth in a fucking cage where she belongs. When you hear her banging on the cage, you'll have to take her out like Ol Yeller. Just kidding, you actually just have to hold the cage until that dumb mutt shuts up. The wiki, for some reason, doesn't have a page for her, and since I avoided her at all costs, I actually never experienced any of her penalties. But if I had to guess, I'd bet one of them makes you hold her cage for longer, and another makes her not make noise when she's attacking. But going off of how I know her to be with no penalties, I'm going to put her in C tier. Amber is a character that at first didn't seem too bad, but will very quickly become a run killer. She begins at the entrance. At random times, she'll hold up a playing card with a suit on it. You will then have to click the corresponding suit on the cameras or she'll kill you. The 2 penalties she has might actually be the most evil ones in the entire game. Follow Suit will give her the ability to have more than 1 card, and 52 Pickup will make that number of cards she can hold literally be any number, which is so retarded I can't even begin to explain why you shouldn't pick this, so just don't. I thought Amber would be great, but I very quickly started to avoid her whenever I could. C tier. CG is annoying, a nuisance character, but not very hard to deal with unless you get unlucky. She will randomly move around the cameras, and if you look at her on the cameras for too long, she'll make you put the mask on for a really, really long time. Her penalties aren't really the worst, however. Aggressive CG will make her make you put the mask on for longer, and Insta CG will make her enter your office if you look at her, period, even if only for a fraction of a second. However, a monitor is added to your office, showing exactly where she is at all times so that you can easily avoid her. There are much worse nuisance characters, and if you don't have any of her penalties, she really isn't a problem. B tier. Dsam, I'm gonna say Sam, is a character I never once chose throughout my playthrough. You may think that makes me a bad reviewer, but I personally think that makes me someone who values not killing myself. Sam will slowly walk back and forth in front of your window with some sound cues. Before he gets to a door, you will have to close it, making him a character you pretty much always have to be watching. He has 2 penalties. Quiet Sam removes his sound cues, and Invisa Sam forces you to only use his sound cues. So pick your poison, dumbass, or even better, just don't pick this character. D tier. Roby is torture. I thought he wouldn't be so bad, and let's just say I wasn't so right. He sits in your office with a timer on his eye. When it reaches 0, you must have your mask on or you will die. He has 2 penalties that are all equally terrible. Mute Roby removes the sound cue he makes right before waking up. Awoken Roby makes him stay awake longer, forcing you to put the mask on longer. I'm dead serious. Don't pick this character. He is horrific. F tier. Alexis is simple, but very easy to forget about, especially on later nights. She will randomly wander around the cameras. If you pull the camera down while on the camera she's at, she'll make you put the mask on for a really long time. So you'll have to switch cameras before pulling them down. She also has 3 penalties. Aggressive Alexis makes her act like CG, where looking at her for too long will also make her attack you. Sneaky Ghost will only make her appear on a camera after you look at it for a second, and Crazed Ghost will insta-kill you instead of making you put the mask on. If you are diligent and aren't an idiot, Alexis is not an issue. But because of how fast you'll be switching through cameras on later nights, I can't give her any higher than a B tier. Onion is another character I never choose. When you pull up the cameras, there's a chance he'll be on them and quickly run left or right. You will have to close the corresponding door. If you close both, he'll drain a bunch of power. Again, for some reason he doesn't have a wiki page, so I don't know what his penalties are, but just knowing what he does, I'm going to put him in C tier. T Generic is a very annoying character who I only choose if every other character was ass. He will be in the entrance with an arrow on his face. Once he leaves the entrance, he will go to whichever vent he was pointing to, and you'll have to stare at him in that vent until he goes away. If he gets into your office, you'll have to put the mask on for a very long time. He has 3 penalties that somehow make him even more annoying. Crazed Robot will make him insta-kill you instead of putting the mask on. How About I Do Anyway will make him enter your office regardless of if you looked at him in the vents or not. However, if you did look at him, you'll have to put the mask on for a shorter amount of time. And Glitched will make T Generic sometimes switch what vent he's going to, making his arrows completely useless. He's a character that breaks the rules and that breaks my balls. D tier. Kaiden acts in much the same way as T Generic. He'll start in the entrance holding a sign with an arrow pointing left or right. Once he leaves with a sound cue, you'll have to close whichever door he was pointing to. He of course has penalties that make him silent and make him go in the opposite direction the sign was pointing to. I've actually picked Kaiden multiple times because if you can avoid his annoying penalties, he's an incredibly easy character to deal with, since you can close both doors when you hear his sound cue for about 2 seconds and not have any additional penalties. A tier. The ink monstrosity is always an immediate pick for me. It starts in your office on the ceiling and slowly creeps down. Hold your flashlight on it to force it back up. The best part is it'll basically teleport all the way back up when you flash the light on him, but that's where his penalties come into play. Stubborn will make you have to hold your light on him, removing the loveliness of this character, but overall still isn't too bad. Head Start will make the ink monstrosity start halfway down in your office and won't be able to go all the way back up to the top. Easily the worst penalty this character has. I love this character, always an immediate choice for me. S tier. Robo Popcakes is a character I initially avoided, but eventually grew to really like picking. At random, he'll spawn on your cameras. Not a specific one, he'll just be an overlay. You will have to match up 2 patterns using the arrows on the overlay, and once you do, he'll disappear. If you don't do it in time, you'll die. This character is always one I liked choosing because of how likely I am to pick characters like Bonnie and Chica, because while I stare at them on the cameras, I can deal with RoboCake, killing 2 birds with 1 stone. He has 2 penalties. X = X minus 2 gives you 2 less seconds to align his face, and pop time will only cause time to progress when you complete a Robo Popcakes attack. Overall, even with max penalties, Robo Popcakes isn't a terrible character. A tier. Entity 12 is pure masochism. They'll start in the storage or maintenance and move down your hall. Watch them on the cameras to make it go back. If they get to your office, they'll make you put the mask on for a long ass time. And get this, the 2 penalties they add doesn't make it any better. Aggressive Entity 12 will make you put the mask on for the rest of the fucking night if they gets into your office. And Run Killer will literally start with it inside of your office and it will never leave. Literally fuck that, fuck this character, F tier. Mura is a character I'd highly recommend not picking if you have other characters that don't want you spamming through cameras. because you will have to be doing that a lot with Mira. Mira will be in the kitchen the entire night and will require you to feed her candy. If you don't feed her enough, you'll die. Candy will randomly spawn throughout the cameras, so you'll have to surf through them to click on them. The penalties she adds are brutal. Savory Tooth makes candy spawn less. Small Plate puts a small cap on the amount of candies you can hold at a time. And Sweet and Sour adds sour candies that will remove a candy from your candy counter if you click on them. So if you've been working your muscle memory this whole time and get this penalty, have fun clicking on every single sour one all the time. I'm not a fan of the camera surfing this character brings, and I'd much rather prefer to just ignore picking her. D tier. The Ringmaster is an interesting character. He'll randomly spawn on your cameras. When you see him, you'll have to flip the camera down and greet him in your office. If you switch cameras, he'll make you put the mask on for a long time. Crazed Magician is a penalty that will make clicking off of his camera just instantly kill you. And Masked Magician will make flipping down the camera always make you put the mask on, but for less time than usual. I don't love picking Ringmaster, but I will usually end up choosing him later in a run. B tier. The Entity is someone who gives me AIDS. They will randomly spawn on your cameras in 3 locations, except only one of them is actually real. You'll be able to tell because the fakes will be more transparent. Again, for some reason their wiki isn't available, and I never actually chose any of their penalties, so I'm not totally sure what they are. But I hate find them on the camera characters. You guys know that. D tier. No VA is a character I only dealt with once, acting as probably the most nuisance characters of all the nuisance characters. No VA will randomly move around your cameras. You will have to avoid clicking on the camera it's on, or you'll have to put on the mask. On lower AI levels, the camera it's on will be marked with green, making it very easy to see. As the AI goes up, it'll get harder and harder, eventually becoming fucking invisible. And let me tell you, the penalties make it even worse, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Malware makes clicking on no VA's camera kill you instantly. Spamware makes no VA on multiple cameras at a time, and adware creates an adware window on your cameras. If you don't close it fast enough, it will force you to look at no VA's camera. I actually think this character is really cool, and I think that its penalties are actually super interesting. Aside from malware, that one is AIDS. I still don't love picking this character though, because I hate mask characters. So because of this, I'm giving no VA C tier. Moldy is a character that is a really good pick for early game, but late game will easily become a character you will forget about. Whenever you pull down your camera, there's a chance he'll be in your office. If he is, you'll have to hold your light on him for a while, or you'll have to put the mask on. He has 2 penalties. Aggressive Moldy will make you have to shine your light on him for longer, and Crazed Mold will make pulling up the camera while he's in your room instantly kill you. Again, early game, he's amazing, but you will very quickly forget about him once more characters start to get added. So because of this, I'm giving him B tier. Rita Rabbit is thick, but that's not important. What is how she works. She sits on her fat ass in the arcade slowly attempting to leave. All you have to do is hold the flashlight on her to make her go away. Honestly, not that bad of a character if you pair her with other arcade characters, which there is a decent amount of. She has 2 penalties. Aggressive Rita will make you hold your flashlight on her longer, and Cheeky Rabbit will make her move faster the longer you're not looking at her camera. If you know how to stack her with other characters properly, Rita shouldn't be a problem even if you have her penalties. A tier. Coral is another character that I love seeing as an option to pick. Coral will randomly appear at either of your doors with no sound cue, so you'll have to make sure you're paying attention. Simply close the door he's at and he'll knock, letting you know he's left. He has 2 different penalties. Blinding will make you additionally hold the flashlight on him for a while, and making sure will force you to have your camera down while the door is closed in order for him to leave. I love this character, he's super easy to deal with, S tier. Shrimp is another character that just makes me giddy with joy whenever I see her. Shrimp will occasionally spawn some shrimp food in your office on either side. Whichever side it's on is the side you have to close the door of until the shrimp food disappears. The 2 penalties she adds are easily some of the best to deal with. Big Shrimpin' is a penalty that will cause the shrimp food to have the chance to be really big. If it's really big, you just have to close both doors. And Small Shrimpin' gives the food the chance to have the lid off. If it is, all you have to do is close the door to the opposite side of the food.
Shrimp is incredibly easy to deal with, she's satisfying to deal with, and she doesn't use the fucking cameras, which I love. Easy S tier. Worm is the next character we have to talk about, and I avoided this guy like the plague. I was very scared of how it was going to work, so I never actually ended up using it. Worm will start in the dining room and go down your right hall and will stay there until you open the door. When you open the door, it'll crawl through your office. Avoid looking at it either by using the mask or looking at the cameras until it leaves. It also has 2 penalties. Snail makes it move across the office slower, and Digger will make Worm add another bar of power usage while it's at your door. Worm just seems like a character that would completely disrupt the flow of the night, and because of that, I'm putting it in D tier. Kyle and Bob are the 2 next assholes I want to talk about, and these guys are weird. And also really shitty and confusing, and I don't fully understand them. Kyle and Bob are 2 separate animatronics, but they work in tandem. Both of them are vent characters. If Kyle, the yellow one, enters your vent, you have to look at him on the camera or he will enter your office and make you use the mask. If Bob is in your vent, you can't look at him on the cameras or he'll enter your office and make you use the mask. The only problem is, I was never able to figure out how to tell which one entered the vent. At first, I thought maybe they'd alternate and I'd have to remember, but then during one run, Kyle attacked twice in a row. So I'm thinking there has to be something I'm misunderstanding about these 2. Of course, they each have 2 penalties. Crazed Sun makes them instantly kill you if they enter your office, and Eclipsed will make one of them invisible while the other is in the vent. I tried to like these guys, but because I'm retarded and can't fully figure them out, they were never for me. D tier. Magi is a pretty interesting character. He will consistently walk back and forth in front of your window. At random, he will make a sound cue letting you know he's about to attack.
Come on, go.
When he does, you have to close the door to the side he's on, leading to you needing to keep track and remember which side he's on at all times. This isn't too bad for someone like me who tries to be able to stay in the office as much as possible. Magi has 3 penalties. Reach around will change the way his sound cues work. If he says
Surprise,
or
you won't see this one coming.
you will then need to close the door to the opposite side he's on. This can be confusing for obvious reasons. Do it myself is a penalty that will make Magi attack the opposite door whenever you deal with his puppet the first time. And Invisimagi makes him fucking invisible, as I'm sure you could have guessed. Magi is not my favorite, but I have no problem picking him later in the run when things are getting tight. B tier. Mallory, on the other hand, is torture. She stays in the ticket booth. At random, she will hold up any amount of fingers on one hand. You will then have to flash her with the flashlight that many times. If you flash her too many times or not enough, she will dash at your door 15 times. This is AIDS. And I can't even lie, 15 times? Why so many? Seems a bit overkill, don't you think? But let's talk about her penalties, which she has 3 of. Ambidextrous will make her be able to show you up to 8 fingers. DoorDash will make her charge 20 fucking times instead of 15, and DoorDash EX makes her charge your doors for the entire night. Easily one of the most bullshit characters when you have her penalties on, but if you can avoid choosing them, she's only really ass because her hand is conveniently behind the fucking camera map. D tier. Roy is one of the only camera animatronics I can actually stomach. He starts in the dining room and slowly makes his way to your office. You can lure him to a previous camera by holding your flashlight on them. Since he's a moth, he's attracted to the light. He only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Roy, which will just make you have to hold the light for longer to get him to move. Overall, very solid character, and not too annoying to handle until his AI value gets really high. A tier. Silly is kinda silly. Fuck, editor, cut that out. Silly is my favorite vent animatronic. He moves around the cameras, who gives a fuck? Eventually, he'll enter one of your vents. When he does, all you have to do is hold the flashlight on him before he enters your office and eats your butt. He also only has 1 penalty, Aggressive Silly, which makes you hold the flashlight on him for longer. Very simple character, he makes sound cues, I like sound cues, S tier. Next up, we've got Bop. She's an interesting ADHD-riddled little fuck. When you pull down the camera, there's a chance she'll be standing in your window. She will then dash towards either of your doors. Simply close that door before she gets to it. She has 3 penalties. Layered Square will make Bop charge your doors multiple times. Bop Spawn will cause Bop to be able to spawn at your window even if the camera is down, and Force Down will make Bop force your camera down if it is up. a character that requires quick reaction time, and when more characters get added can be easily missed. E tier. Venus is a fucking plant. Oh, you want to know what they do? Sure, that's fair enough. Venus will sit in the kitchen the entire night like your mom in the middle of the night looking for more food, even though she ate 65% of dinner that night. Throughout the night, bunnies will spawn in your room and you'll have to click on them to collect them. You then feed these bunnies to Venus in the kitchen camera. Very fucked up, Venus. These bunnies are cute. Venus has a hefty 4 different penalties, actually being one of the highest in the game. Wabbit hunting will make the bunnies in your office jump around, making them harder to click. Except they're still not hard to click, so it's not that bad. Depopulation will make the bunnies spawn less frequently. Wanderer will make Venus randomly move around your cameras instead of camping the kitchen. And Mako will add Venus's friend Mako into your office. If you click on him, you'll die. Venus is very fun to play with. Their mechanic is satisfying, clicking on the bunnies is fun, and even most of their penalties aren't too bad. S tier. Cyrex is the next character we need to talk about, and I absolutely hate her. She starts in the ticket booth and slowly makes her way to your office. Before she gets to your office, you'll have to go to the ticket booth camera and call her to your office manually and then put the mask on. If she gets to your office by herself, I'm assuming you can guess what happens. And if you couldn't have already guessed, her penalties aren't much better. Rising aggression makes her make you put the mask on longer the longer you take to call her to your office. And call tracker will randomize the camera the call button is on every time you use it. This character is Torment. This character is Anguish, F tier. Next we have Ellie, another character so potently AIDS I fear even talking about her. Her goal is to chew the wires in the storage room to cut your power. You will have to watch for her in either hall. When she's in one, you must make sure the door on that side is open and shake a box of snacks on that side of the office to lure her inside of the office. She will leave shortly thereafter. If your office door isn't open when you lure her, she will bang on the door and drain your power. She also has 3 penalties if this didn't already sound terrible enough. Shaker will force you to shake the bag of treats longer. Power Chomper will make Ellie drain more power when she bangs on your door, and Wind Skip will make her able to teleport from one hall to another without ever appearing in your window like she usually does. I don't think I have to explain why this character is awful to deal with. The rules that go along with her are far more complicated than any other character, F tier. The next character we have to begrudgingly talk about is Ammo. Ammo starts in the dining room and will slowly wander to your right door. Each camera he travels through will have an eject button with 2 power. Before Ammo reaches your office, you must press the eject button on any camera that has the eject power, which will then send him back to the dining room. Once a camera is out of power, there's no way to get it back. If this wasn't terrible sounding enough, you haven't even heard of his 3 penalties yet. Quiet Ammo will remove his sound cue when he moves. Single Take only allows each room to have 1 eject power instead of 2, and Demon adds Ammo's friend, Demon, who will randomly move around the ejectable cameras. If you eject a camera Demon is on, you will die. I hate this character. Dealing with him can be bad on higher AI values, but since he's nowhere near as bad as some of the other characters in this game, I'm putting him in D tier. And here we are, 29 pages into my script later, and we can talk about the final animatronic in this game, Swagman. Swagman has a pretty interesting mechanic I've actually never seen before. He will randomly wander around the cameras. You will have to stare at him to fill his swag meter up. If it goes all the way down, he will make you put the mask on for a long ass time. However, this mechanic isn't as bad as I'd usually say it is, because you can easily tell which camera Swagman is on because he lights it up. So, what about his 3 penalties? Well, Swagalicious makes him move from camera to camera faster, which can get annoying. Endless Swag will force you to put the mask on for the rest of the night if Swagman gets in, and Eye on the Swag will make Swagman's meter go up slower than usual. Overall, not a bad character, and no penalty that removes the ability to see what camera he's on. C tier. And there we go. That's every single character in Too Many Nights. I love how many there are. It leads to such a new and interesting experience every time you play, and I love it. But now I'd like to mention the general penalties that aren't specific to any character, as there are a few of those as well. Generally, from what I've noticed, it's much smarter to pick the general penalties over the character penalties, as it will be much more likely that they will be easier to deal with. Overtime will make each hour of the night last 2 seconds longer.
and you can actually have 2 overtime penalties active at a time. Less power will, as the name suggests, make you start each night with less power, 10% to be exact, and you can have 3 of these penalties. Less room is a penalty that will give you 1 less option when selecting animatronics, and you can have 2 of them. All-Star will make the next enemy you add start at max AI value. Stranger Danger will add a random character you don't already have at a very low AI value, and Midnight Motivation will make all characters' AI value increase at 3 AM. All-Star, Stranger Danger, and Midnight Motivation are probably going to be penalties you always want to avoid, but I personally don't think the other characters are that bad. Next up, I'd like to talk about the characters that you can unlock to play as, because if you remember, each character has different pros and cons for you to choose from. To start, each character has a different amount of lives they'll start you with. Getting jump scared by an animatronic will cause you to lose one of these lives, giving you multiple opportunities if you mess up. And of course, I'll be putting these guys on a tier list as well. The first character you will have by default is Michael. He gives you 3 hearts and has no abilities. He's as basic can get, really. D tier. You also, by default, have 3 other much more interesting characters. The first being Elizabeth. She gives you 4 hearts and forces the enemies to have their AI values increase slower. But as a con, you'll receive half the amount of coins you'd usually get. The low AI value honestly makes her pretty valuable, but of course, never being able to buy anything is never fun. C tier. Evan is the next auto-unlocked character. He gives you 3 hearts, makes all enemies start on a higher AI value, but to compensate, nets you 1.5x more coins, which will be nice for when we talk about shops later in the video. High AI values are never super great, especially if you're dogshit at FNAF games like I am, but overall he is nowhere near the worst character to choose. C tier. Cassidy is the last character you'll unlock by default. She only gives you 1 heart and makes every single enemy start at maximum aggression, and forces you to pick a penalty every single night. She also will never allow you to see shops. Instead, you can use your money to remove penalties and animatronics. I don't care that you can remove things. Having to pick a penalty every night whilst also only having 1 heart is pure AIDS. F tier. Henry is the first character on the list to unlock. However, you can unlock them in pretty much any order you want. Henry is unlocked by beating at least 1 night while using Michael, Elizabeth, Evan, and Cassidy. Something that should be very easy to pull off. He gives you 3 hearts and gives you way more options when picking enemies, penalties, and shop items. However, you will be forced to pick more enemies and more penalties. The last thing you're going to want to do is give yourself more threats. So even though your option pool is bigger, the cons outweigh the pros here a lot. D tier. Gabriel can be unlocked by having 2 penalties active in a run that affect Freddy. He gives you 3 hearts, gives you a guaranteed shop every single night. But as a downside, each character comes with a few of their penalties already added. I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, and a lot of character-specific penalties are horrific. Sure, you may never have to pick a penalty after beating a night, but I really don't care about that as much as getting butt-fucked by character penalties. F tier. Jeremy can be unlocked by getting a power outage on night 3 and beyond and still surviving the night. Generally one of the harder characters to unlock. He gives you 5 hearts. You start the run with 500% power instead of 100%. The nights are shorter than usual, but as a downside, your power carries over from night to night. But don't let that fool you. 500% power is a lot of fucking power, and if you're good at enemy building, you can easily make that last a long time. And 5 hearts is a fuck ton. Easy A tier character. Susie will be unlocked if you die to Chica twice in a single night and then beat that night. She gives 3 hearts. Each enemy starts at max AI value, but you gain 1 life after you beat a night. Now, at first glance, this may sound really bad, but I actually had my second best run ever using Susie, and it's 100% because of that life gain. With characters always on max difficulty, there's no way for them to get harder, so you'll get used to them at their hardest difficulty pretty quickly. Sure, she's not the best, but she definitely isn't as bad as she sounds. B tier. Fritz is unlocked by having 100 or more coins at one time in a single run. He gives you 2 hearts, and your lives are attached to the number of coins you have. To be specific, for every 50 coins you have, that equals 1 heart. Overall, this character is more confusing than it will ever be useful, actively discouraging you from ever buying anything. You're better off just using Michael, as there's no real downside.
D tier. Fitzgerald is unlocked by beating Night 5 in a run whilst only picking the leftmost enemies and penalties. I actually struggled a bit unlocking this character, so what does he do? Well, you start with 3 hearts, and each enemy and penalty are randomized each night, meaning the 3 enemies you pick on Night 1 will be different on Night 2, and you can also pay to reroll, as well as getting a shop every single night. This character really just serves as what I'm going to call a challenge character. You would never actually want to bring this character into a legitimate run, and because of that, I'm giving him an F tier. Sally is easily the most unique character out of all of the normal ones, and I'll explain what normal means in a bit. You unlock her by beating a night with both Percy Poodle and Rowan Rat on max AI values. Sally introduces a brand new mechanic, that being the Pup Pal from Playtime with Percy. It works in the exact same way as in that game, and the best part, your progress on the night is tied to it. No more waiting out the night. You will have to complete the games on the Pup Pal for the night to end. Again, this goes to serve as more of a challenge character than anything else, as playing Sally will by default make the game much, much harder. And because of this, I'm giving her F tier. Again, not because she's not a fun character, but because if you're trying to get far in a run, she's not the character for you. And finally, we have the man himself, Scott Cawthon, who is unlocked by completing Night 3 with every other character in the game. And of course, since he's the final character, he has the most interesting mechanic. He himself doesn't have any abilities, instead letting you pick the pros and cons from every other character in the game, allowing you to mix and match your favorite pieces from other characters. You don't need me to tell you that Scott is a broken character. I'm pretty sure you can figure that out. Easy S tier. And boom, that's every single playable character in Too Many Nights. So now we can start talking about the items that can be bought in the shop. I won't be going over each and every one since there are literally a fuck ton to talk about, and this video is already long enough. But I do want to talk about some of the best ones to look out for. Early Out is an item that will make each night 2 seconds shorter. More Power will start each night with 10% more power. More Room will give you more options when picking animatronics. The Empress will give you 1 life and give you more options when picking animatronics. The Emperor will decrease every animatronic's AI value by 2. The Chariot will have you start each night with 15% more power. The Hanged Man will remove 2 random penalties you have activated. Death removes a random enemy. The Moon makes each hour 3 seconds shorter. Fritz Children's Bible will make items you can't afford never show up in shops, and Sparked will make sparks appear randomly on cameras, and touching them will increase your power. Those are all of the yummy yummy mashed potatoes in my belly items that I like to look out for in the shop. Again, there are a lot more, but I think it would just be really boring to go over all of them. But there you go. That's everything you need to know, and as far as I'm aware, everything that Too Many Nights has to offer.